Chapter 209. At this moment, the Nine Tribulations' great emperor was in disbelief. 5 das. It was already a miracle for one person to master 5 das. If this kid's alchemy Tao was included, wouldn't it be 6 das? SSS. The Nine Tribulations' great emperor felt his mouth go dry. One person mastered 6 das. He had never seen such a powerful person. You? Why are you so strong? The Nine Tribulations' great emperor was shocked as he looked at Ning Tian. Heh. Ning Tian sneered and ignored him. I have the system and you don't. This is the reason why I can be so willful. You have shocked the Nine Tribulations' great emperor. Current martial arts damage has doubled. At this moment, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Instantly, Ning Tian's aura shook again. The Nine Tribulations' great emperor's shock increased his strength at this moment. You're already dead. Ning Tian looked up. His eyes were cold and murderous. Sound trap array. Zhang Ning Tian gently plucked the strings of the guzheng. Beautiful heavenly music sounded at this moment. One after another, the beautiful music turned into a trap array and enveloped the Nine Tribulations' great emperor. You want to trap the emperor? No way. The Nine Tribulations' great emperor turned his claws into fists and attacked. Boom. Zhang. The domineering fist intent collided with the beautiful heavenly music. However, the fist intent was easily dissolved. The sound trap array was completely formed. What a powerful immortal music trapping array. A glint of astonishment flashed across the eyes of the group of Emperor Gods. You have shocked a group of Emperor God experts. Current martial arts damage has doubled again. Ning Tian's lips curled up slightly. What was a cheat? During the battle, his strength was still increasing. Die. Ning Tian's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. Then, 5 types of Taoist rhymes fell. Zinai. Boom. In an instant, power erupted. Divine light shone brilliantly, illuminating the past and present. A terrifying aura burst out from the sky, as if it was going to suppress the entire heavens. Boom. In an instant, his aura exploded in all directions. Heavenly Treasure Saint Master, Sect Master Ling Su, and the other God Emperor's faces changed. Without hesitation, they used all their strength to run away. This aura was astonishing, and they did not want to be affected. What are you panicking for? Now that we're so far away, the power will definitely be reduced by a lot. Just block it. Sacred Master Xiaoyao didn't want to end up in such a sorry state. He remained calm and raised his hand slightly in the face of the incoming aura. Huh. Suddenly, his expression changed. F***A. Why is this residual power still so terrifying? Boom. Very quickly, the group of Emperor Gods who were running for their lives saw unfettered Saint Master spurting out blood as he was sent flying. Hiss. Seeing this, the Divine Kingdom Lord's eyes flashed with shock. Without hesitation, he fled. Hence, the scene of a group of God Emperors running and dodging in a sorry state was played out. What they were dodging was merely the residual energy left behind by the attack. Boom. An instant later, a burst of aura burst out. Wow! Nine Tribulations' great emperor exclaimed as he spat out mouthfuls of blood. Nine Tribulations' great emperor, it's indeed hard to kill you. Ning Tian stood tall in the sky. His expression did not change as he stared coldly at the Nine Tribulations' great emperor. Nine Tribulations' great emperor was in a sorry state. His body was covered with wounds, and his blood was almost stagnant. His breath was in a mess. He gritted his teeth and stared at Ning Tian. His heart was in turmoil. This guy is too strong. I can't stay here for long. Nine Tribulations' great emperor gritted his teeth and looked solemn. You're very strong. Just you wait, Emperor. Shadow step. Nine Tribulations' great emperor's body was filled with a faint black aura. He suddenly shot toward a direction. Trying to escape? Ning Tian's eyes flashed coldly. System. Activate the power of faith. Activating the power of faith of thousands of levels. Activate. As soon as his voice fell, Ning Tian's stored power of faith of thousands of levels erupted. His body shone with a dazzling golden light. He raised his hand slightly, and all the golden light energy condensed in his hand. Then, he pushed with his big hand. Boom! That golden light of faith turned into a terrifying energy ball and blasted toward Nine Tribulations' great emperor. What? Nine Tribulations' great emperor's face changed, and his body was instantly shrouded in golden light. Ah! Ah! There was a scream. In the golden light, blood gushed out. It was like a flower of blood blooming. Boom! A big bloody hole was blasted in Nine Tribulations' great emperor's body. Blood gushed out, and everything inside could be seen clearly. Wow! A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. He did not have time to wipe it. After giving Ning Tian a vicious look, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence and stepped into the void and disappeared. Seeing this, Ning Tian frowned. Although this move seriously injured Nine Tribulations' great emperor, but it was not fatal. But even so, he did not choose to pursue. After a big battle, the time for the realm exchange card was about to end. If he pursued rashly now, once the time for the realm exchange card was up, then the loss would outweigh the gain. What kind of great emperors are these guys, and why did they attack us? Ning Tian frowned slightly and pondered for a while. The elixir that he refined was indeed terrifying, but it was not enough to make 3 great emperors pay the price of 2 dead and 1 seriously injured to snatch it. These 3 people had other reasons. Oh yes, wife. Puzzled, Ning Tian shook his head. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. At this time, he remembered that Luo Wuqing was still injured. Then, he quickly leaped into the air and jumped into the square. In the square, Luo Wuqing sat cross-legged, and there was a faint black aura on her cold face. She frowned slightly, and her teeth bit her red lips. It seemed that she was suffering. Founder, the Empress should have been poisoned. At this time, Lin Feng walked over with a look of awe. What kind of poison? Resentment poison, Lin Feng said honestly. I happen to have the formula for the antidote, and I also have the herbs, but this elixir is a little difficult to refine. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Ning Tian. Cut the crap, just give it to me. Ning Tian frowned, and his tone was a little anxious. Yes, Founder. Lin Feng did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. He quickly took out all the herbs from his storage ring. Ning Tian took them. He casually threw them into the 3-legged golden crow cauldron and burned them with alchemy fire. In the blink of an eye, the aroma of the elixir filled the air. You just casually refined an elixir? Lin Feng was stunned. He looked at Ning Tian with more and more enthusiasm. You have shocked Lin Feng. Reward, scar removal elixir. The system's voice sounded in his mind, but Ning Tian did not care so much. When the detoxification celestial pill was completed, the time limit for his Saint Alchemy Attainments trial card was up. He took the slightly warm elixir and walked to Luo Wuqing's side. He said softly, Come, wife, open your mouth. However, Luo Wuqing still frowned and did not react at all. Chapter 210. Seeing this, Ning Tian frowned and no longer hesitated. She gently used one hand to open those soft red lips and gently placed the detoxifying elixir into her cherry mouth with the other. As the detoxifying elixir entered his body, Luo Wuqing's expression seemed to relax. However, she didn't wake up. Don't worry, Ancestral Master. The Empress will wake up in half an hour, Lin Feng added. Ning Tian nodded and looked at Luo Wuqing worriedly. Ancestral Master. Lin Feng was silent for a moment. He gritted his teeth and hesitated for a moment. Then, with a thump, he knelt on the ground. Ancestral Master, please accept me as your disciple. As soon as he finished speaking, the disciples and elders of the spirit medicine sect were stunned. However, it was normal. Lin Feng was an emperor alchemist, but their ancestral master was a saint alchemist. Accept you as my disciple? Ning Tian raised an eyebrow and shook his head. You're too strong. I can't teach you. His words were indeed the truth. The Alchemy Attainment's Saint Trial card had already expired, and he had only just stepped into the path of alchemy. You can't teach me? When Lin Feng heard that, he immediately thought that Ning Tian thought he was stupid and disdained to teach him. He sighed and waved his hand, disappointed. Ancestral Master, you don't have to say that. You don't have to save me face. I know I'm far inferior to you. However, I will work hard. Sooner or later, I will kneel in front of the Ancestral Master again and have the Ancestral Master willingly accept me as his disciple. Ning Tian was speechless. He couldn't be bothered with him. Then, he gently pulled Luo Wuqing's soft body into his arms and prepared to leave. Compared to this place, the Tianma cult was safer. Just as he took a step forward, Heavenly Treasure Sacred Master, Sect Master Ling Su and dozens of other emperor gods landed in front of him. What do you want? Ning Tian asked calmly as he looked at the dozens of martial emperors. If these people wanted to overestimate themselves, he did not mind killing them. Ancestral Master, please don't misunderstand. Hearing the displeasure in Ning Tian's voice, the Heavenly Treasure Sacred Leader smiled bitterly and said, Ancestor, the Heavenly Treasure Sacred Ground is willing to pay 1 billion spirit coins to refine an immortal pill for the Heavenly Treasure Sacred Ground. The Lingshu sect is willing to offer 3 celestial artifacts in exchange for a celestial pill. The Heaven and Earth sect is willing to use a Heaven-class technique in exchange for the Ancestral Master's help to refine an immortal pill. Netherworld sect. Following that, the dozens of great emperors introduced themselves. Their goal was the same. They were willing to pay the price in exchange for Ning Tian to help them concoct an immortal pill. I'm not interested. Move aside. Ning Tian didn't even think about it before he flatly refused. The dozens of god emperors were stunned. They didn't expect that their ancestor wouldn't be willing to help them even though they had offered such tempting conditions. Ancestral Master, if the conditions are not enough, we can add a little more. Tianbao Sacred Master gritted his teeth. He was still unwilling to give up. Yes. Ancestral Master, what conditions do you want? We can fulfill them. We just want the Ancestral Master to refine an immortal pill for us. The group of god emperors begged bitterly. Hiss. Seeing this, the group of spiritual medicine sect's disciples sighed and shook their heads. The dozens of god emperors put down their pride and begged the Ancestral Master to refine an immortal pill for them. Just as the group of god emperors was waiting in anticipation, an indifferent voice exploded like a clap of thunder. How dare you? Boom. A terrifying great emperor's aura radiated from Ning Tian's body. Instantly, the dozens of god emperors turned pale. They all bowed before Ning Tian and endured the powerful aura silently. I said, I'm not interested. Ning Tian's cold eyes landed on the crowd. If you delay my wife's treatment, do you believe that I will kill all of you right now? Or do you think that I don't have the strength to do so? Hiss. Hearing this, the dozens of god emperors trembled violently. Their eyes were filled with deep fear. They shook their heads and spoke in panic. No, no, no. Ancestral Master, you have misunderstood. We will shut up. We will shut up. The group of god emperors who were powerful enough to dominate the heavenly spirit region were as obedient as lambs in front of Ning Tian. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Everything that had just happened was still vivid in their minds. 2 8th Tribulation Great Emperors and a 9th Stage Great Emperor had attacked the Ancestral Master, but in exchange, 2 died and 1 was severely injured. Ning Tian looked at the group of god emperors indifferently. Then, he carried Luo Wuqing and stepped into the void and disappeared. Phew. After Ning Tian left, the terrifying great emperor's aura that suppressed the crowd slowly dissipated. The group of god emperors' backs were drenched in cold sweat. They were shocked as if they had just walked through a life and death situation. The Ancestral Master is so terrifying. So, the Ancestral Master of the Tianma cult has been hiding his strength all this time? Everyone was shocked. At this time, they finally understood why the legendary Ancestral Master of the Tianma cult could do such a thing. What the F***CK could a 9th Order Great Emperor not do? Do 9th Tribulation Great Emperors nowadays like to hide their strength? A bitter smile appeared on everyone's lips. Tianma cult. 2 figures quietly appeared in the void. They were Ning Tian and Luo Wuqing. After returning to the Tianma cult, Ning Tian heaved a sigh of relief. He did not disturb the Tianma cult members. Instead, he carried Luo Wuqing and quietly flew to the Saint Pond at the back of the mountain. In the Saint Pond, the pond water rippled. Ning Tian gently placed Luo Wuqing on the stone surface. At this moment, Luo Wuqing's blue and white dress was spotless. However, her tightly knitted brows meant that she was suffering. The pond water wet her blue and white dress, making it faintly visible. It tugged at one's heartstrings. However, Ning Tian did not pay attention to this at this moment. Luo Wuqing was still unconscious, which made him a little worried. Ding! The time limit for the Realm Exchange card has expired. The exchange card is invalid. Returning everything. At this time, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Then, the ninth tribulation Great Emperor aura on Ning Tian slowly dissipated. Jade Pool. The Queen Mother was lying on the bed, pressing her body down and outlining her perfect figure. A bag of ice cubes was placed on her, but to reduce the swelling. She fell from the sky, and no one came to catch her. Her butt almost exploded. Suddenly, the Great Emperor aura in her body returned. My strength has returned? A look of astonishment flashed across the Queen Mother's beautiful eyes. She could not help but feel a little amazed. Thank you, Queen Mother. At this time, Ning Tian's voice sounded in her mind again. Grandmaster, what exactly do you want to do by borrowing my strength? The Queen Mother still did not know what had happened. I'll tell you in detail when we build the teleportation pillar. As soon as these words came out in her mind, Ning Tian's voice completely disappeared. Hearing this, the Queen Mother was stunned for a moment. Her beautiful eyes were full of anticipation. In the Saint Pond, Luo Wuqing was sweating profusely. Her sweat and the pond water completely wet her blue and white dress. Chapter 211. Her breathing was a little rapid, and she exhaled waves of orchid air. Seeing Luo Wuqing like this, Ning Tian frowned and muttered to himself, Strange, it's been half an hour. Why hasn't my wife woken up yet? Could it be that Lin Feng lied to me? At this moment, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Host, if it were an ordinary person, they would naturally wake up within half an hour after taking the antidote elixir. But the Empress is not an ordinary person. She has the Holy Sun constitution, which reacts with the poison. So, even if she took the antidote elixir, it would be useless. Holy Sun constitution? Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. He had some impression of it. Last time at the sacred pool, Luo Wuqing had used her own Holy Sun constitution to activate the healing water in the sacred pool to heal her. Then how can I cure her? The system chuckled. Of course it's that, hee. That? What's that? Ning Tian asked with a pure expression, as if she was eager to learn. The system said, that is, put your cheap wife in the pool and activate the characteristics of her Holy Sun constitution with spiritual energy. Then, use the healing water in the pool to detoxify the poison. Ning Tian felt as if there were thousands of alpacas galloping in his heart. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. If it's not that, then why are you chuckling? Host, we are all decent people. Why do you have to be so perverted? Moreover, the Empress was only poisoned by the soul's resentment poison, not an aphrodisiac. The system said in exasperation. Ning Tian was speechless. After all, it's better to enjoy together than alone. You have to wait for the Empress to wake up and share your happiness. That's true happiness. The system chuckled again. This system was actually an old pervert. That's not right. At this moment, Ning Tian suddenly thought of something and frowned. System, tell me honestly. When I was having sex with my wife, were you secretly watching us? Thinking of this possibility, Ning Tian felt goosebumps all over his body. Host, please be at ease. This system is absolutely serious. Cough cough. The system's beautiful voice carried a trace of certainty. Shut up. Ning Tian rolled his eyes. The system must have peaked. Moreover, the system had finally been quiet for a long time, but it was talking again today. Then, he ignored the system and looked at Luo Wuqing, who was lying on the jade stone. At that moment, her blue and white long dress was soaked by the pond water. It tightly clung to her delicate body, vividly outlining her perfect figure. Phew! Ning Tian heaved a long sigh of relief, forcibly suppressing the fanatical restlessness in his heart. If he were to die under a peony, he would still be a romantic ghost. However, his wife's health was more important. Next, he stretched out his hand, one hand under her knees, the other around her slim waist. Then, he gently placed Luo Wuqing in the pond water. With the support of spiritual energy, Luo Wuqing was able to float on the surface of the water. At that moment, Luo Wuqing's hair was floating on the surface of the water. Her face was calm and beautiful, like a lotus flower emerging from the water. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Most importantly, the wet appearance of the pond water was a complete performance of a wet body temptation. However, a certain pitiful person could only endure the restlessness in his heart in the face of such temptation and watch helplessly. System, now we just need to wait, right? After everything was done, Ning Tian asked the system. System, yes, host? At that moment, a holy aura appeared on Luo Wuqing's delicate body. Together with the healing pond water, it began to detoxify her body. Seeing this, Ning Tian heaved a sigh of relief. Now, all he needed to do was wait. Ning Tian flipped his hand, and the divine pill emitting a medicinal fragrance appeared in his hand. His eyes shone brightly as he murmured to himself, I'll find a time to swallow this heavenly patterned divine pill. By then, I should be able to break through to the Holy Emperor stage. After carefully storing the heavenly patterned divine pill into his storage ring, the system notification sounded again. Host has consumed 1,000 levels of power of faith. Current power of faith automatically upgraded. Currently, you can store 10,000 levels of power of faith. 10,000 levels of power of faith? Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. The power of 1,000 levels of power of faith was indeed very strong. Together with the strength of a 9 Tribulations Great Emperor, it almost killed a Great Emperor of the same level instantly. If it had been 10,000 levels of power of faith, the 9 Tribulations Great Emperor would have been blasted into smithereens. However, who exactly are the 3 Great Emperors? Ning Tian murmured. After thinking for a long time, he shook his head and stood guard beside Luo Wuqing. Forget it. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. Heavenly Spirit Region's Central Continent. Righteous Tao Alliance, on the Immortal Mountain. In the secret chamber, Righteous Heaven Emperor suddenly opened his eyes and let out a long sigh of relief. He frowned and murmured, Could it be that the 9 Tribulations is the final path of a great emperor? Of course not. At this moment, a voice sounded in the secret chamber. In the center of the secret chamber, the crystal ball flickered with blue light, and a blue shadow appeared. It was the empty God Emperor. If you step into the pseudo-supreme Tao stage like me, you will be able to surpass a 9 Tribulations Great Emperor. The empty God Emperor smiled proudly. What is the so-called pseudo-supreme Tao stage? Righteous Heaven Emperor frowned and did not understand. Haha, it can only be understood but not explained. Comprehend it yourself. The empty God Emperor smiled mysteriously. Righteous Heaven Emperor, comprehend it yourself? Comprehend my foot. I can comprehend it myself. Do I need you to ask me? So, why did you come here today? Righteous Heaven Emperor looked at the empty God Emperor's blue shadow with displeasure. Of course, to attack Jade Lake. A light flashed in the empty God Emperor's eyes. Attack Jade Lake? Righteous Heaven Emperor was stunned and his eyes flashed with astonishment. Do you still remember the secret of the Jade Lake sacred land that my Void God Heavenly Palace knows about? Emperor Void God's eyes flashed with malice. Hearing that, Emperor Zhengtian nodded. So, what is the secret? The empty God Emperor said indifferently, There is a true demon in the depths of Jade Lake. A true demon? Righteous Heaven Emperor frowned. Moreover, he's a true demon with a name. The empty God Emperor sneered. What? Righteous Heaven Emperor's face changed dramatically and his eyes flashed with shock. A true demon and a true demon with a name were two completely different things. The former was at most equivalent to a great emperor-level powerhouse of the human race. However, with the word bestowment, it was completely different. Their status in the demon race would rise infinitely. Most importantly, with a name, they would be able to come into contact with the absolute core of the demon race. Hiss! Jade Lake, how dare you? Righteous Heaven Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. If the demon race knew that the Jade Lake's sacred ground dared to imprison a true demon with a name, the consequences would be unimaginable. So, what do you plan to do? Righteous Heaven Emperor narrowed his eyes and looked at the empty God Emperor. The empty God Emperor smiled and said slowly, Righteous Heaven Emperor has the ability to summon a true demon. My Void God Heavenly Palace has a devil summoning technique that can awaken that true devil from the seal. At that time, Jade Lake will be in a difficult situation, let alone the Heavenly Devil Cult. Chapter 212. Demon Summoning Technique? Emperor Zhengtian paused and asked, Who's going to do it? The Vice Palace Master of the Void God Heavenly Palace. A 9 Tribulation Great Emperor and 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors. With this lineup, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Emperor Zhengtian smiled confidently. A 9 Tribulation Great Emperor and 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors. Emperor Zhengtian fell into silence. He wasn't surprised that the Void God Heavenly Palace had such a lineup. After all, the Firmament territory couldn't be compared to the Heavenly Spirit region. In the 9 Spirit region, the Firmament territory was the largest. Unlike the Heavenly Spirit region, the Firmament territory wasn't completely ruled by the human race. The human, demon, and demon races were divided into factions there. The fact that the Void God Heavenly Palace could be ranked in the top 5 was enough to prove their strength. If it's a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor and 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors, the Jade Lake Sacred Ground won't be able to stop them. After all, even the Jade Lake Sacred Leader is only a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor. Emperor Zhengtian regained his senses, and a cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. If that's the case, we'll definitely defeat the Tianma cult. Humph! Those who stand in the way of the Emperor will be annihilated. The Void God Emperor only revealed a meaningful smile. Just wait, they'll be here soon. Emperor Zhengtian paused halfway through his sentence. Speak of the devil, and he will appear. They're here? The Void God Emperor nodded. Boom. At this moment, in the secret chamber, a part of the void shattered, and a figure covered in blood and in a sorry state fell out of the void. Emperor Zhengtian and Emperor Zhengtian were shocked when they saw this. Emperor Zhengtian's expression changed drastically as he asked, Shinsu, what happened to you? The person in front of them was the 9 Tribulation Great Emperor, who had been severely injured by Ning Tian. Ahem, it's a long story. Shinsu looked bitter. Where are the other 2? The Empty God Emperor felt that something was amiss. Shinsu was seriously injured? They're dead. Shinsu lowered his head and gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with hatred. That brat killed my 2nd and 3rd brother. I won't let him off. Dead. Dead? Emperor Su Shan and Emperor Zhengtian were stunned when they heard this. Their pupils constricted and their lips trembled. Dead? 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors. Died? How is this possible? At this moment, it was as if stormy waves had been set off in their hearts, and they were unable to calm down for a long time. This was not some King rotten fish or shrimp. 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors. An 8 Tribulation Great Emperor who could kill millions of people with a flip of his hand died just like that? What the hell is going on? The Empty God Realm Emperor's face turned ashen as his tone turned cold. He gritted his teeth and looked at Shinsu. Losing 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors was a huge blow even for the Void God Heavenly Palace. A great emperor expert could not be nurtured casually. Moreover, they were 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors. On the side, Emperor Zhengtian frowned and didn't say anything. It's like this. Shinsu slowly explained what had just happened as he coughed up blood. Emperor Zhengtian and Emperor Su Shan's faces darkened when they heard what Shansu had to say. Divine Pill 9 Saint Light? And the legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult was a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor? He fought against 3 people alone, but 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors died tragically and 1 9 Tribulation Great Emperor escaped with serious injuries? This This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Emperor Zhengtian's eyes flashed coldly. I've seen that kid before. No matter how powerful he is, he can't be a nine-tribulation great emperor. He was certain. After all, he had seen Ning Tian in the chill Wind Mountain range that day. At that time, that kid was only at the Earth King realm. It had only been a month. How could he have become a nine-tribulations great emperor? But it was really the legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult who beat me up like this. Shun Tzu's voice was filled with helplessness. Not only is that kid a saint in alchemy, but he has also mastered 5 das. Each of them is extraordinary. His last beam of golden light even severely injured me. Shin Tzu's eyes flashed with deep shock. Ning Tian had left an indelible fear in his heart. Emperor Zhengtian and Emperor Su Shan fell silent when they heard this. What is going on? Didn't you say that the Tianma cult only has one great emperor, the Empress? Emperor Su Shan frowned at Emperor Zhengtian, his voice filled with anger. Emperor Zhengtian's face darkened, and he remained silent. At this moment, it was as if he was suffering in silence. He was a little frustrated. What the F***ck is going on? That legendary patriarch was clearly at the Earth King realm. How did he become a nine-tribulation great emperor in the blink of an eye? Could it be that he had been pretending to be weak all this time? Hiss, I understand now. Emperor Zhengtian took a deep breath, and his eyes turned cold. The Tianma cult is really scheming. That legendary patriarch had always been a nine-tribulation great emperor. He had only announced to the public that he was an ordinary disciple, but that was not the case. His goal was to make the forces in the Tianling region lower their guard. What a good plan. They wanted to trick the Righteous Alliance into attacking so that they could wipe us out. Emperor Zhengtian's face darkened as he thought about it. If Ning Tian was here, he would roll his eyes at Emperor Zhengtian's expression. Was Emperor Zhengtian suffering from delusions of being persecuted? What do we do now? Emperor Zhengtian looked at Emperor Su Shan. The legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult was so powerful. Could their plan be ruined just like that? What do we do now? Emperor Su Shan was also confused. This had happened too suddenly. Before they could even attack, 2 8-tribulation great emperors had died. What do we do now? What do we do now? The two of them spoke one after another, but they were both conflicted. Why don't you guys discuss it later and help me stop the bleeding first? Shun Tzu's weak voice came from the side. However, he was ignored by Emperor Zhengtian and Emperor Empty God. Forget it. We'll talk about the plan against Jade Lake after Shan Tzu recovers. Emperor Su Shan sighed, his eyes flashing. What about the Tianma cult? Emperor Zhengtian frowned. Getting rid of the Tianma cult was far more important than Jade Lake. The Empty God Emperor frowned as well. After a long while, his brows relaxed as a cold light shot out from his eyes. No matter what, the Void God Heavenly Palace had to get a spot in the Battle of the Gods. It seems like we can only use our backup plan. Chapter 213. West Continent, Tianma Cult. Holy Lake. Ning Tian still didn't know that he had indirectly ruined the Righteous Alliance and the Void God Heavenly Palace's plan against the Jade Lake. At this moment, his gaze fell on Luo Wuqing's body. Layer after layer of holy light enveloped her delicate body, making her look incomparably holy. System, what exactly is this holy sun constitution? Looking at this increasingly mysterious phenomenon, Ning Tian couldn't help but feel a little curious. Well, the host can slowly explore this on his own. The system's answer was still as annoying as ever. Hearing this, Ning Tian was too lazy to ask. His gaze quietly fell on Luo Wuqing's body. After a while, Luo Wuqing's delicate body trembled slightly as the holy light merged into her body. Wah! At this moment, a mouthful of black blood spurted out from her red lips. It instantly evaporated in the air, turning into a wisp of black gas and dissipating. This was the remnant of the vengeful spirit's poison in Luo Wuqing's body. Ugh! At this moment, the poison was cleared. Luo Wuqing's tightly shut eyes moved a little. Then, she slowly opened them and saw Ning Tian looking at her with a worried expression. My husband. Her red lips moved. The moment these words came out, Ning Tian's body trembled. He felt as if his heart was about to melt. Luo Wuqing, who had just woken up, didn't have her usual coldness. Her voice had a hint of laziness and was very charming, especially when she called him that. It was simply a pleasure to listen to. "You're awake?" "Yes." Luo Wuqing gently nodded. At this moment, Ning Tian's words shocked everyone. "Come, take off your clothes." "Yes?" Luo Wuqing froze for a moment, and her charming face instantly flushed red. This guy wanted to bully her again? Moreover, in the holy lake? "I'm not taking it off." Luo Wuqing's voice suddenly became cold. Seeing her pretty face rosy, Ning Tian immediately thought that her mind must be filled with something with color. He could not help but sigh in his heart. Which beast is the one who led my wife astray? Damn it! Ning Tian shook his head and placed his hands on Luo Wuqing's shoulders. Luo Wuqing frowned. Could it be that this guy wanted to use force? "Wife, you're thinking too much. There are 2 sword wounds on your back. If you don't treat them properly, they'll leave scars," Ning Tian said with a smile. "Scar?" Hearing this, Luo Wuqing frowned. Women loved to be beautiful, and no one was willing to leave ugliness on their body. I understand." Luo Wuqing nodded. Soon after, she bit her red lips and slowly stood up from the pool. Whoosh! Along with the ripples of the pool water, the clothes that were soaked by the pool water instantly stuck to her delicate body. Perfect, outlined to the extreme. Ning Tian swallowed his saliva. Even a saint would find it hard to resist such a scene. Luo Wuqing sat on the jade stone with her back facing Ning Tian. Her face was a little red, and she gritted her teeth. She was still a little reserved. But this reserve was quickly exposed by the guy behind her. "Wife, take it off. What's there to be shy about? We're already an old married couple." Luo Wuqing rolled her eyes at him. Then, her jade-like hands gently pulled down her clothes. However, she did not take them off completely, only revealing her smooth jade back. Looking at her smooth jade back, Ning Tian could not help but sigh in his heart. Such a beautiful back. It's a pity that you don't go cupping. Soon, his gaze landed on the 2 hideous sword wounds on his body. Death is too easy for those 2 guys. Ning Tian's gaze turned cold, and his body suddenly emitted a dense murderous intent. Feeling the murderous intent behind her, Luo Wuqing's heart warmed. She said softly, "Okay, help me deal with the wounds first." "Okay." Ning Tian nodded. Then, he took out the scar-removing elixir from the storage ring that the system had given him. It was a small jade bottle, and there was some blue liquid in it. "Wife, I'm going to start. It might hurt a little. Bear with it." Ning Tian whispered in her ear. "It's okay. You can do it yourself." Luo Wuqing shook her head. Why would a mere great emperor care about this little bit of pain? "Okay." Ning Tian nodded. Then, he gently opened the small jade bottle and poured some of the elixir on his hand. Then, he reached out and stroked her jade back. The warm liquid gently touched the wounds. Ning Tian's rough and powerful palm gently wiped the wounds with the liquid. The advantage of this was that it could spread all the medicinal properties of the elixir. Luo Wuqing felt the temperature of the rough hand and the warmth of the liquid. Vaguely, she felt very comfortable. She actually subconsciously let out a seductive sound from her red lips. What's wrong? Is it very painful?" Hearing this sound, Ning Tian frowned slightly, and the movements of his hand stopped. "No, it's not painful." Luo Wuqing's voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but a touch of redness quietly appeared behind her ears. She didn't expect this. She actually let out such a sound. Soon, under the effect of the elixir, the 2 hideous scars on Luo Wuqing's jade back slowly disappeared. Her jade back was still so smooth and white. "Wife, why are you breathing so fast?" At this time, Ning Tian asked aloud. At this moment, Luo Wuqing's breath was like orchids, and her face was a little red. I'm fine." Luo Wuqing opened her red lips slightly and said with some difficulty, What are you doing?" At this time, Luo Wuqing clearly felt that someone's hand was moving from her back to her front, and it was very naughty. Of course, I'm giving my wife a full-body massage. You're tired. Ning Tian smiled. No, I'm not tired. I'm very good. Luo Wuqing's forehead showed a few wisps of black lines, and she gritted her teeth and said, No, you're tired. I'm not tired, you're tired. I'm not. My husband said you're tired, so you're tired. Ah, what are you doing? Where are you grabbing? In the sacred pond, the water was flowing, and the water was rippling. Perhaps that I'm not should be the last stubbornness of the Empress. In these 2 days, when a piece of news spread throughout the entire Tianling realm, the entire Tianling realm instantly exploded. The divine Pill 9 Saint Light, the legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult, was actually a saint in alchemy? Shocking. That was not all. A 9 Tribulation Great Emperor and 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors, a total of 3 Great Emperors from outside the realm, wanted to attack the Empress of the Tianma cult. However, the patriarch of the Tianma cult transformed into a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor and attacked fiercely. In the end, the 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors died with hatred, and the 9 Tribulation Great Emperor fled with serious injuries. Hearing this news, all the forces and cultivators were shocked, and stormy waves were set off in their hearts. The legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult was actually a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor? How was this possible? Chapter 2:14. The Celestial Spirit Domain. All the forces and cultivators were shocked by the fact that the patriarch of the Tianma cult was a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor. The Heavenly Treasure Holy Land. Haha, I've finally escaped from the confinement room. Zhu Yuanbo was running for his life. The fat on his body jiggled, which was quite comical. Suddenly, he heard the discussion of the disciples around him. Have you heard? It's said that the legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult is actually a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor. A few days ago, he even killed 2 8 Tribulation Great Emperors and seriously injured a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor. The disciples of the Heavenly Treasure Holy Land were still shocked when they talked about this. Huh, the patriarch is a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor? Zhu Yuanbao's running footsteps came to a halt. He was dumbfounded. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. He was petrified on the spot. Damn, what exactly happened during the 2 days he was confined? Why did he hear such shocking news as soon as he came out? Ha ha ha. He suddenly came to his senses. He looked up to the sky and laughed, tears streaming down his face. The disciples around him looked at him in shock. Is the Heavenly Treasure Holy Sun stupid? I didn't expect to be friends with a 9 Tribulation Great Emperor one day. Ha ha ha. Who dares to provoke me, Zhu Yuanbo, in the future? The patriarch is super awesome. Under the patriarch's leadership, the tonic pill that my man must have will be sold to the entire celestial spirit domain. At this moment, there was movement behind him. He saw a group of old men and old women chasing after him. Holy Son, your confinement period is not up yet. Hurry up and go back. If you don't go back, the Grand Elder will make trouble for you. Hearing these voices, Zhu Yuanbo frowned and continued running. The fat man said irritatingly as he ran, Dream on. Don't even think about taking me back. Didn't I just eat 2 of your afterimage stormy horses? Do you have to go that far? You old man, you're too stingy. By the way, help me tell the Grand Supreme Elder that your horse is delicious. Whether it's steamed, barbecued, or a whole lamb feast, they're all very good. Next time, tell me if you have any more horses. I'll bring my own chopsticks. Seeing this scene, the group of Heavenly Treasure Holy Land's disciples sighed. The saint had forgotten the pain after his wounds healed. Could it be that he had forgotten that just 2 days ago, he had been whipped by the Grand Elder? Boom! All of a sudden, an aura exploded within the Heavenly Treasure Holy Land. Then, an old man's furious voice sounded. Zhu Yuanbo, get the hell back here. Supreme Divine Kingdom, Divine Land City, under the cherry trees. A beautiful figure raised her head slightly and looked at the falling cherry blossoms in a daze. At this moment, some chattering sounds came from not far away. Senior sister, Yu Qin skipped over, panting heavily. What happened? You'll return to the firmament territory in a few days. Don't you want to take this opportunity to play? The moon spirit princess turned around with a smile on her face as she looked at Yuqin. I'm not playing. I'm not playing. Yuqin blushed and shook her head. Senior sister, you've been cultivating these 2 days. You don't know that something big has happened in the heavenly spirit territory. Something big has happened? Moon spirit princess was stunned, and confusion flashed across her beautiful eyes. What happened? Ancestral Master. He and the Empress were attacked by a 9 tribulation and 2 8 tribulation emperors. What? Upon hearing this, Moon Spirit Princess's pupil shrank, and her expression changed as if she had been struck by lightning. She muttered to herself in a daze. A 9 tribulation and 2 8 tribulation emperors? The Empress's strength should be enough to deal with a 9 tribulation emperor, but there are 2 8 tribulation emperors. Ancestral Master. How is the Ancestral Master? Moon Spirit Princess looked at Yuqin in a panic. Don't worry, the Ancestral Master is fine. Yuqin's eyes flashed, and she said excitedly, moreover, not only is the Ancestral Master fine, he even displayed the strength of a 9 tribulation emperor and instantly killed the 2 8 tribulation emperors. He even severely injured the 9 tribulation emperor and forced him to flee. Huh. You said the Ancestral Master is a 9 tribulation emperor? Hearing this, the Moon Spirit Princess was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she was stuttering. Yes. Yuqin nodded heavily, and her face was flushed with excitement. It's unbelievable, isn't it? When I heard this, I was also stunned for a long time. Moon Spirit Princess was silent, and her delicate body kept trembling. The fact that the Ancestral Master was a 9 tribulation emperor was too shocking, and it was difficult for her to recover in a short time. After a while, Moon Spirit Princess heaved a sigh of relief, and her beautiful eyes flashed. Phew, so the Ancestral Master is so strong. At this moment, Yuqin snickered and whispered in her ear, How is it? Senior sister, are you mesmerized by the Ancestral Master? Moon Spirit Princess nodded subconsciously. When she regained her senses, her beautiful face instantly turned red, and she pouted coquettishly. Damn girl, what are you thinking? Hee. Yuqin stuck out her little tongue and smiled playfully. Senior sister, don't you have any feelings for the Ancestral Master? Moon Spirit Princess was stunned for a moment, and then she smiled bitterly and said, Silly girl, the Ancestral Master is like the bright moon to us. We can see him, but we can't reach him. So, don't think too much. Is that so? Yuqin seemed to understand. When all the disciples in the Tianma cult heard the news, they were extremely shocked. Their worship of Ning Tian had reached a qualitative leap. Therefore, many cultivators passing by the Tianma cult could hear a torrent of voices coming from the Tianma cult. The Ancestral Master is awesome. The Ancestral Master is forever a god. Hearing these voices, these cultivators were all in awe, and they silently said this in their hearts. Inside the room, Ning Tian was sitting cross-legged. The system's voice sounded in his mind. A huge amount of faith energy has been detected. Will you absorb it? Absorb it, Ning Tian said without hesitation. Absorbing faith energy absorption +1. Faith energy absorption +3. Faith energy absorption +2. Faith energy absorption +1. After an unknown number of times, the sound finally stopped. Current faith energy, 2300100000. Due to the shock he caused in the Sky Spirit realm, the disciples of the Tianma cult worshipped him even more, and his faith energy increased by more than 2,000. Now, everyone in the spirit realm should think that I'm a 9 tribulation great emperor. Ning Tian narrowed his eyes. This was actually a good thing. At the very least, even a great emperor wouldn't dare to casually attack him now. After all, when he transferred the Queen Mother's power, he killed 2 8 tribulation great emperors and severely injured a 9 tribulation great emperor. Some god emperors and even great emperors in the Sky Spirit realm were extremely afraid of him. They couldn't wait to avoid him, so how could they dare to provoke him? But I still have to increase my strength first. Otherwise, if a so-called great emperor can't even fly, it would be too fake. Ning Tian murmured again. Chapter 2:15. Now that he had the heavenly pattern divine pill, not only could he use it to break through to the intermediate level of initial mastery of the celestial god constitution, but he could also use it to break through to the holy emperor state. I'll try it again at noon, Ning Tian murmured. Then, he got up and walked out of the room. He had to talk to Luo Wuqing about this and ask her to protect him. After all, he didn't know what kind of scene would occur when he broke through. When Ning Tian walked out of the celestial demon palace, all the disciples and elders who saw him were extremely respectful. Even though he had gone far away, the numerous blazing gazes still followed him. Everyone thought that their ancestral master was a nine tribulations great emperor. After arriving at the celestial demon palace, Ning Tian told Luo Wuqing about this matter. Everything was waiting for noon. At noon, the spiritual qi was rich, and it was the best time to break through. Noon. The sun was shining brightly. Tens of thousands of disciples of the Tianma cult were gathered in the square. Their gazes were burning with excitement as they looked at the moonlight cliff not far away. There was a figure sitting cross-legged there. What is the ancestral master doing? I don't know. That's the cultivation of a nine tribulations great emperor. How can we understand it? Don't worry so much. Just watch. The group of disciples spoke one after another, and their expressions were somewhat excited. Looking at Ning Tian was like looking at a legend. They originally thought that their ancestral master was already awesome enough, but they never expected that the extent of their ancestral master's awesomeness far exceeded their imagination. Sigh. I've already said that our ancestral master is definitely worthy of the Empress. Look, I was right, wasn't I? In the middle of a group of elders, the Grand Elder stroked his long beard and said without a hint of embarrassment. The elders were speechless and couldn't help but roll their eyes. They didn't know who was the one who was so angry when he found out that the Empress's husband was their ancestral master, and said that he wasn't worthy. Now, he had turned the truth upside down. What a shameless old man. Who would have thought that ancestors' true strength is actually that of a nine tribulations great emperor? Sigh, this is like a dream. The first elder could not help but shake his head and let out a long sigh. Hearing this, the group of elders all nodded in agreement. All of this happened too suddenly. Boom. At this moment, Luo Wuqing, who was dressed in a long blue and white dress, appeared in the sky. Then, she landed on the moonlight cliff. Husband, are you ready? Luo Wuqing asked softly.
Yes.
Ning Tian nodded. It's about time to start. Hearing this, Luo Wuqing nodded and prepared to protect him. Boom. Rumble. Right at this moment, the originally clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and thunder rumbled incessantly. It was still daytime, but in the blink of an eye, it seemed to have turned into night. Boom. The sky was completely dark. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The thunder was like an angry dragon, circling in the clouds and emitting waves of angry roars. What's going on? Isn't it noon now? How can the sky be dark? Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Tianma cult disciples changed abruptly. This sudden darkness caused a trace of fear to appear in everyone's hearts. This is, among the group of Tianma cult elders, an old man in blue narrowed his eyes and looked at the sky. He pinched his fingers and calculated. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. Oh no! Elder Tian, what's going on? The group of elders looked at the blue-clothed elder in confusion. The blue-clothed elder was an elder of the Tianma cult's Tianma Hall. He was good at observing natural phenomena. Elder Tian's expression was extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, "It's the daytime thunderstorm." The daytime thunderstorm? Hearing this, the group of elders' expressions changed abruptly. They cried out involuntarily, "It's the daytime thunderstorm?" In the square, the Tianma cult disciples were somewhat flustered. The daytime thunderstorm? What's that? Hearing the group of disciples' words, Ning Tian frowned slightly. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. The daytime thunderstorm is a relatively common phenomenon among the natural phenomena in the Tianqian world. This phenomenon is unpredictable and can easily cause great damage from lightning strikes. Moreover, the daytime thunderstorm generally only appears in a certain area. Beside him, Luo Wuqing explained slowly. A certain area? Hearing this, Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. Then, he looked at the sky not far away. Sure enough, after passing a certain distance, the sky was not like this at all. It was very normal. The daytime thunderstorm was right above the Tianma cult at this moment. This time, I'm afraid we'll have to replace some buildings again. Luo Wuqing sighed. Not long ago, the Tianma cult had been forced to rebuild because of a house-demolishing maniac. Unexpectedly, there was another daytime thunderstorm this time. But fortunately, the Tianma cult, had money. Husband, wait for me here first. I'll go protect these tens of thousands of disciples, Luo Wuqing said. Just as she was about to move, Ning Tian grabbed her wrist. Don't be in such a hurry, Ning Tian said. Luo Wuqing was stunned for a moment. I have my ways. Ning Tian smiled mysteriously. Then, he stood up, looked at the tens of thousands of disciples, and said loudly, Hey, is Lin Hao here? Come out for a moment. Soon, a little fatty squeezed out of the crowd with some difficulty. Ancestral Master, you called for me? Yes. Ning Tian looked at Lin Hao and asked, I asked you to make the iron elemental armor a few days ago. Have you finished making it? Ancestral Master, this disciple has finished forging all the iron elemental armor with the senior brothers in the forging hall. Lin Hao said honestly. Very good. Ning Tian nodded with satisfaction. He looked at the dark clouds gathering in the sky. A thunderstorm was about to fall. He said slowly, Pass down my orders. Let all disciples and elders wear the iron elemental armor. Once they wear the iron elemental armor, they don't have to be afraid of the thunderstorm at night. Wear the iron elemental armor? Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, but he quickly nodded. Yes. Then, Lin Hao and the disciples of the forging hall began to distribute the iron elemental armor. Basically, every disciple and elder was wearing the iron elemental armor. Very good. Ning Tian smiled. He had chosen the iron elemental armor to enhance the thunder attribute. Even if it was a thunderstorm at night, there was nothing to be afraid of. Most importantly, he could even recharge the iron elemental armor through the thunderstorm at night. Boom. Then, dark clouds gathered in the sky. It was as if a thunderstorm was about to fall in the next moment. All the disciples and elders were wearing the iron elemental armor. Their eyes were filled with doubt. However, they did not dare to refute their ancestral master's words. There must be a reason for their ancestral master to do this. Boom. At this moment, a clap of thunder sounded in the sky. Then, small lightning bolts fell from the sky. Chapter 2:16. The thunderstorm that filled the sky fell from the heavens. It was as if it had turned into tiny lightning dragons that rushed toward the Tianma cult members. I'll block it, the Grand Elder shouted. He wanted to rush into the sky and forcefully take the lightning with his body. Back down, Grand Elder. Unfortunately, before he could move, he heard Ning Tian shout. He wanted the iron elemental armor to be charged by the thunderstorm. If the Grand Elder blocked it, wouldn't it be a waste of the thunderstorm? Yes, Ancestral Master. Hearing this, the Supreme Elder could only nod his head and return to the ground. Boom, boom. In the sky, the lightning dragons roared angrily. The thunderstorm that filled the sky fell down heavily. All the disciples and elders of the Tianma cult had solemn expressions, and a hint of fear flashed in their eyes. Although the Ancestral Master said that the iron elemental armor could protect them from the damage of the thunderstorm, they still couldn't help but feel afraid in the face of such a situation. After a short moment, boom, boom, the thunderstorm fell on the ground and instantly smashed a large pit. Electricity flashed in the large pit, crackling. Then, countless buildings in the Tianma cult collapsed. Seeing this scene, the disciples and elders did not react at all. They were already numb. After all, Their Tiamat cult buildings had been rebuilt many times in the past few months. Every collapse seemed to have something to do with the ancestral master. Be careful, the thunderstorm is coming. At this moment, Ning Tian's reminder came from not far away. Hearing this, the elders and disciples' expressions instantly turned serious. They circulated their spirit qi and prepared to face the raging thunder. Boom! In the next moment, the thunderstorm fell on them. The disciples subconsciously closed their eyes, preparing to endure the immense pain brought by the thunderstorm. However, when the lightning rain fell on the armor, the group of disciples clearly sensed that nothing had happened. The thunderstorm was very powerful and could pierce through boulders, but it was just ordinary rain when it fell on them. When they opened their eyes, they were shocked to find that there was a light purple shield on their bodies. As the thunderstorm fell, the light purple shield became more and more resplendent. It was as if they were absorbing the energy of the thunderstorm. F***, is this armor really that strong? The group of disciples widened their eyes. One of the senior brothers looked at Lin Hao. Junior brother Lin Hao, the armor you forged is actually this strong. You don't even fear a thunderstorm at night. Yes. Junior brother Lin Hao, you're amazing. The group of disciples looked at Lin Hao in shock. Lin Hao awkwardly scratched his head and couldn't help muttering in his heart. Although this iron element armor was designed by me, my original intention was to defend against sabers and swords. Since when can it defend against lightning strikes? Suddenly, he thought of something and looked at the figure on the moonlight cliff. This is not due to me, it is due to the Patriarch. Grandmaster is a forging grandmaster. He must have modified my iron elemental armor. Lin Hao said excitedly. Patriarch? Blacksmith grandmaster? Hearing this, the group of disciples was shocked. Was the Patriarch the omnipotent king? What domain was he invincible in? Indeed, I modified it. At this moment, Ning Tian's indifferent voice sounded. Now, this iron elemental armor can absorb the lightning element to recharge the armor. The armor can use lightning to defend and attack, so absorb the thunderstorm at night to your heart's content. Recharge the armor with the thunderstorm at night. There was not a single person in the Sky Demon cult who was not shocked. In the past, they had never heard that no one dared to not run under the thunderstorm at night. Now, not only did they not run, but they were going to face the thunderstorm at night. Hiss! This was unbelievable. You have shocked a group of Tiamat cult members and received the aura of chaos. Aura of chaos. Hide your aura. No one can spy on your aura and strength. At this moment, after shocking the entire Tiamat cult, the system's voice sounded. Aura of chaos? Hearing this, Ning Tian's eyes flashed and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He was very satisfied with this reward. It just so happened that the entire Tianling realm thought that he was a Nine Tribulations great emperor. With this aura of chaos, no one could spy on his aura. This confirmed this fact even more. Just right, I can use this thunderstorm to absorb more energy. Ning Tian looked up at the sky. The thunderstorm fell on his body without causing any harm. Faintly, one could see the Tao rhymes of wind and thunder circulating around his body. Wife, I'm ready to start. Ning Tian said to Luo Wuqing. Okay. Luo Wuqing nodded slightly and took a few steps back. Her eyes fell on him. Then, Ning Tian took out the heavenly patterned divine pill from his storage ring. Suddenly, a rich medicinal fragrance filled the entire moonlight cliff. Phew! Ning Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, then raised his head and swallowed the heavenly patterned divine pill. Boom! The moment the pill entered his body, his aura exploded. Detected that the host has obtained a large amount of spiritual qi. Do you wish to break through? This time, Ning Tian did not choose to suppress his cultivation level. Instead, he chose to break through directly. Break through. Breaking through. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying aura swept out from Ning Tian's body. Then, his aura continued to rise. One should know that he had been at the peak of the Earth King realm for a long time and had not broken through. Chapter 217. If he chose to stop his strength at 9 stars, it would be even more disadvantageous for him. This kind of qualitative leap was very likely to be a superficial strength. It had the appearance, but not the actual strength. What he wanted was a completely solid strength. If it was superficial strength, then it would be completely like those young masters who had been fed with elixirs to increase their strength. On the surface, he was as fierce as a tiger, but in reality, he was as fragile as a piece of paper. Therefore, Ning Tian had been constantly adjusting his strength, and finally stopped at 5 stars of the Holy Emperor realm. His aura was whistling. Luo Wuqing, who was at the side, was curious and wanted to check out his strength. However, she realized that she couldn't see through Ning Tian. Strange, why can't I see through this guy's aura? Luo Wuqing frowned slightly. She knew that Ning Tian didn't have the aura of a great emperor, but at this moment, she couldn't see through Ning Tian's strength. My husband is getting more and more amazing, Luo Wuqing murmured. She also knew that Ning Tian had his own secrets, but she didn't ask. She trusted Ning Tian. If he could tell her this secret, he would definitely tell her. Now that he didn't tell her the reason, Ning Tian naturally had his reasons. She wouldn't force him to do anything. Phew. At this moment, Ning Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Feeling the huge aura in his body, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. Next, I can upgrade my heavenly god constitution, he murmured and looked at the sky. Above the sky, thunder dragons were flickering. It was the best time to upgrade his heavenly god constitution. Then, Ning Tian moved his body and rushed into the sky. Boom! In the sky, the night thunder and rain rushed toward him. It was as if thousands of tiny lightning dragons were crashing into him. What is the founder trying to do? Seeing this scene, the group of disciples opened their eyes wide. Their breathing was a little rapid, and they looked excited. What was the patriarch going to do again? Was he going to do something that would shock the world and make ghosts and gods weep? They were full of expectations and looked at each other. In the sky, the system's voice rang in Ning Tian's mind. Currently, after absorbing all the medicinal properties of the Heavenly Pattern Divine Pill, the Heavenly God Constitution has leveled up to Intermediate Initial Mastery. You can obtain 1 Heavenly God Power. Current Heavenly God Power, Raging Thunder. Raging Thunder, able to overturn the clouds and rain with a raise of the hand. Born of Raging Thunder. Wrath Thunder? Hearing the system's voice, Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. Then, he tried to raise his hand. Then, a terrifying bolt of lightning appeared in his hand. Then, it suddenly blasted towards the sky. Bang! The lightning was like an electromagnetic cannon that blasted into the sky. In an instant, a patch of dark clouds directly turned into nothingness. What a powerful force! Ning Tian's eyes flashed. What move is that? How is it that after a flash of lightning, a large part of the dark clouds of the thunderstorm dissipated? Seeing Ning Tian's move, the group of disciples and elders widened their eyes in confusion. Was this the strength of a great emperor? They couldn't even understand the move. Heavenly God Constitution has leveled up. Obtained Heavenly God Record Comprehension points. Heavenly God Record Comprehension has leveled up again. Entered the advanced level. Spiritual meridians can be opened again. At this time, the system's voice sounded again. Hearing this, Ning Tian's eyes flashed with surprise. It was a double blessing. Spiritual meridians? Last time, he had 199 Thunder Calamity spiritual meridians. How many could he have this time? Boom! All of a sudden, a terrifying aura appeared. In the sky, Ning Tian's huge spiritual sea spread out. At this moment, that spiritual sea was actually half the size of the Tianma cult. Hiss! Seeing this scene, the group of people sucked in a breath of cold air. Was this the spiritual sea of a great emperor? In fact, what they didn't know was that a real great emperor's spiritual sea was far more terrifying than this. However, Ning Tian's spiritual sea was terrifying. Even some heavenly venerables couldn't do it. For example, the supreme elders present. In the square, a female disciple widened her eyes and looked at Ning Tian in the sky with a blushing face. Ancestral Master is so awesome. I like it so much. You're blushing like a bubble teapot. The senior sister beside her immediately rolled her eyes. Ancestral Master is very awesome, but we have to learn to be reserved. Reserved, okay? Senior sister. Senior sister. Look, the Ancestral Master has 8-pack abs. What? Where? Unlike these female disciples who were infatuated, the male disciples were extremely excited. One by one, they shouted, Ancestral Master is awesome. Ancestral Master is forever divine. They had long forgotten what the teachings of the Tianma cult were. They only remembered that it was the 8 golden words. Boom. At this time in the sky, thousands of thunder dragons appeared. Everyone was stunned at first, then Elder Gu Yin jumped out. I'm familiar with this scene. Ancestral Master is going to use the Thunder Calamity Dragon to open up the spiritual meridians. Spiritual meridians? A great emperor powerhouse opening up spiritual meridians? Hearing this, the group of disciples and elders was stunned for a moment. Why did it feel a little strange? At this time, the Supreme Elder looked at the group of elders and disciples. Look at all of you. Look at the Ancestral Master. Even though he's a great emperor powerhouse, he doesn't forget to consolidate his foundation. Chapter 218. The entire phenomenon lasted for an entire day. The experts of the celestial spirit domain were all alarmed. Whether they were god emperors or great emperors in seclusion, they all looked in the direction of the West Continent Tianma cult. When they saw the lightning tribulation roaring furiously and a single figure facing the tens of thousands of lightning dragons by himself, they were all stunned. However, the only thing that was not right was that the legendary patriarch of the Tianma cult was a great emperor. Why was he still condensing the spirit meridian? Wasn't the spirit meridian the foundation of a cultivator? Therefore, some experts began to doubt. Then, they sensed the aura of prying in the direction of the West Continent Tianma cult. On the Moonlight Cliff, Luo Wuqing frowned slightly when she sensed the prying aura, but soon relaxed. She did not deliberately stop these prying auras. Even she could not sense Ning Tian's aura. How could these guys sense it? Sure enough, when the prying auras of the god emperors and great emperors landed on Ning Tian, their expressions changed drastically. The patriarch of the Tianma cult was as empty as the chaos. They could not sense any aura at all. The god emperors were in awe, and the great emperors were even more flustered. How is the patriarch of the Tianma cult so damn strong? Even we can't sense his aura? The great emperors questioned in their souls. When they thought of the fact that Ning Tian, a 9-tribulation great emperor, was condensing the spirit meridian, these experts began to doubt themselves. Why would a great emperor cultivate the most basic spirit meridian? They could not help but wonder. Could it be that the patriarch was so strong because of the spirit meridian? Therefore, the group of god emperors and great emperors began to cultivate the spirit meridian. The disciples of their sects were dumbfounded. What had stimulated these patriarchs? One day later, when the sun rose the next day, tens of thousands of disciples were still dozing off. They were very sleepy. The patriarch had not finished cultivating, and they did not want to leave. After all, it was rare for them to see a 9-tribulations great emperor cultivating. They all wanted to gain something from it. Boom. At this moment, in the sky, the 1,000 lightning dragons returned to their positions and rushed into Ning Tian's body. Phew! Ning Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and descended from the sky onto the Moonlight Cliff. At that moment, he had already formed 1,100 spiritual meridians. Honey, you've worked hard. Looking at Luo Wuqing, who had protected him for a day and a night, the corners of Ning Tian's mouth rose slightly as he spoke softly. Hearing this, Luo Wuqing was stunned. She didn't know why, but when she heard him say thank you for your hard work, she felt that there was a hidden meaning behind his words. Perhaps he wanted to do something bad again. Finished cultivating? Luo Wuqing's cold voice sounded. Yes. Ning Tian nodded, feeling very happy. During this cultivation, not only did he successfully raise his heaven god constitution to the intermediate initial success, but his strength had also reached the 5 stars of the Holy Emperor realm. Since it's over, I'll go and deal with the transmission pillar. Luo Wuqing said indifferently. Honey, aren't you tired? Do you want to take a rest? Ning Tian said very seriously. No, I'm not tired. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Wuqing did not give Ning Tian a chance to say another word. He turned around, stepped into the void, and disappeared. Seeing his wife running away in a sorry state, Ning Tian couldn't help but scratch his head. Was he so scary? He would not eat people. At most, he would eat meat? That was not too much, right? On the square, looking at the thousands of spiritual meridians, the group of disciples was very calm. Although these spiritual meridians had already surpassed some great emperors, they were very calm. The thousands of spiritual meridians were indeed a little shocking. However, if it was the founder, it would be very normal. Looking at the group of disciples, the corners of Ning Tian's mouth curled up slightly. He said slowly, all of you, sit down quietly and cultivate with me. Yes, yes, founder. Hearing this, the tens of thousands of disciples were excited and sat down cross-legged. It was also at this time that Ning Tian started the cultivation of faith. A golden light array formation that was several hundred meters wide appeared. In an instant, it enveloped all the disciples who were huddled together. Then, one by one, the disciples felt that the absorption of spiritual qi in their bodies was increasing by leaps and bounds. A few days later, in these few days, Ning Tian led the disciples to cultivate. Under the cultivation of faith, many of the disciples had a qualitative leap. Tianma cult, in the storm house that entertained distinguished guests. Ning Tian was waiting here, because today was the day to discuss the construction of the transmission pillar with the Jade Lake's sacred ground. I wonder who will come to the Jade Lake today? If that demoness Queen Mother of the West comes, it will be a bit of a headache. Ning Tian sat on the chair and muttered. The main reason was that he hadn't thought about how to explain the transfer of cultivation realm to the Queen Mother of the West. Last time, when the great emperor summoned him, he could at least use spatial teleportation to dodge it. But this time, the transfer of cultivation realm was really a bit ridiculous. Sigh, my head hurts. Ning Tian rubbed his head helplessly. Founder, do you have a headache? Do you want me to help you rub it? At this moment, a voice that sounded like orchids exhaled in his ears. It was very numbing. Ning Tian couldn't help but tremble. He subconsciously turned his head and saw that the Queen Mother of the West had appeared beside him. She was bending over and putting her small mouth beside his ear. Damn! When did you come? Ning Tian reacted and subconsciously stepped back. The leg of the chair happened to tilt back, and his whole body fell to the ground. Oh no! He knew that things were not good. Then, he casually pressed his hands. With a point of leverage, he instantly stabilized his body. Phew! Fortunately, he didn't fall in front of the Queen Mother of the West. Otherwise, how could he put his face as the founder? But why did he feel that the place where he borrowed strength was a little soft? Suddenly, Ning Tian looked at the place where his hand stopped. The corner of his mouth twitched. Then, he looked at the Queen Mother of the West with a serious face and said, Queen Mother of the West, if I say that I was careless, would you believe me? Founder, do you think I will believe you? The Queen Mother of the West looked at him with a smile. Ning Tian's old face darkened. He quickly pulled his hand away. Sigh. As soon as his hand left, the Queen Mother of the West sighed. She seemed a little reluctant. Hearing this, Ning Tian was speechless. Could it be that the Queen Mother of the West was a crazy woman? All right, Ancestral Master. You should tell me how you managed to borrow my strength, right? The Queen Mother of the West was still smiling, and her beautiful eyes narrowed into a thin line. What was supposed to come was indeed coming. Ning Tian's heart trembled. After pondering for a while, he said, Can I not tell you? Sure. But what? Ning Tian had a bad feeling in his heart. But founder, you have to help me rub my butt, the Queen Mother of the West chuckled. Her words were shocking. Chapter 219. Help you rub your butt? Upon hearing that, Ning Tian was dumbfounded. What the F asterisk CK is this? What are you trying to do? Ning Tian looked at the Queen Mother cautiously. What is this woman trying to do? Something is wrong with her. Isn't this all your fault, Ancestral Master? My butt hurts. The Queen Mother of the West looked at Ning Tian with resentment. My fault? Ning Tian had an innocent look on his face. I'm a decent person, okay? You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. The Queen Mother's expression and resentment were hard to not misunderstand. Those who didn't know would think that he did something bad to the Queen Mother. When the Queen Mother told Ning Tian about her fall from the sky, she looked at Ning Tian, blinked her eyes, and opened her red lips slightly. Isn't this your fault, Ancestral Master? So, Ancestral Master, help me rub it, and I won't ask you how you can transfer your cultivation level. Ning Tian was silent. He couldn't help but laugh when he thought of a great emperor falling from the sky. That scene seemed a little too comical. Ahem. Be careful. My wife is on her way here with a saber. Ning Tian coughed dryly. Now, he could only use Luo Wuching to pressure this woman. Otherwise, who knew what the Queen Mother was going to do? If it was the same as last time, it would be bad. If Luo Wuching saw it, wouldn't he be the Ancestral Master who had an affair? Oh, saber. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. A very familiar fragrance appeared in the air. At this moment, a beautiful figure appeared in the room. It was Luo Wuching. Queen Mother, what are you doing? Luo Wuching's beautiful eyes flashed coldly as he looked at the Queen Mother indifferently. Nothing. Shi Wangmu shrugged innocently. Then, she said with a smile, I'm just here to ask Ancestor about how Ancestor can transfer my power. So my husband's power of the 9 Tribulations Great Emperor was transferred from you. Luo Wuching's eyes flashed, but this power was related to Ning Tian's secret, so she had to protect it. Don't ask. If you ask, you won't know, she said coldly. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, Ning Tian heaved a sigh of relief. She picked up the tea beside her and took a sip. Thank goodness. Fortunately, the Queen Mother of the West did not cause any trouble. However, at this moment, the Queen Mother of the West suddenly changed the topic and said, However, your husband is really awesome. Pooh. Ning Tian widened his eyes and spat out the tea in his mouth. F asterisk CK. What was the Queen Mother of the West talking about? Whoosh. Indeed, as soon as Shi Wangmu finished speaking, Shi Wangmu's expression changed. All of a sudden, a huge gust of cold air appeared beside him. Ning Tian seemed to have heard death knocking on his door. Luo Wuching looked at the Queen Mother of the West indifferently and said coldly, What did you say? I said, his power is awesome. The Queen Mother of the West changed the topic again, and a sly look flashed in her beautiful eyes. After receiving Ning Tian's power, she sensed it slightly. Although he was only at the peak of the Earth King realm, his power was stronger than some Saint Emperor realm powerhouses. She couldn't help but be a little surprised. You shocked the Queen Mother of the West. You are rewarded with an aura suppression card, available for 3 minutes. Another aura suppression card? However, only 3 minutes? What could he do in 3 minutes? Ning Tian pursed his lips and complained in his heart, System, you're too short. Host, this system feels that 3 minutes is already very suitable for you. After all, you. The system let out a long sigh, looking as if it had expected better from her. Ning Tian, what nonsense are you talking about? Come on, I'm very strong. Okay? The system said, you don't even have the details. How are you strong? Hearing this, Ning Tian admitted defeat. He had no choice. He didn't want to. At this time, Luo Wuching looked at the Queen Mother of the West and said coldly, Humph, at least you know what's good for you. Hee hee. Could it be that our Empress is thinking the wrong way? The Queen Mother of the West chuckled. There was a look of ridicule in her beautiful eyes. Her eyes were quite seductive. If the Empress doesn't mind, I'm very willing to experience another kind of power from our Grandmaster. If you really can't, we can still do it together. Damn. Hearing this, Ning Tian swallowed her saliva with difficulty. The Queen Mother of the West was so domineering. 3 people. Ning Tian felt that at this moment, Many colorful images appeared in his mind. He quickly shook his head to clear his mind. The two women were extremely beautiful. Any man would not be able to resist them, unless he was not a normal person, or he could not stand up. How dare you? Luo Wuqing's face turned cold. A surge of aura burst out from her body. With a boom, all the tables and chairs in the Galerain house were shattered. As for the pitiful Ning Fan, he was also sent flying. Hee. Facing this kind of aura, the Queen Mother of the West's expression did not change. Because she was also a Nine Tribulations Great Emperor, she would not lose in terms of aura. Boom. Boom. The aura of the two women was one up and one down. If they did not advance, they would retreat. The entire Galerain house was shaking as if it would collapse at any time. Ning Tian was stuck in the middle, and he was speechless. In fact, he wanted to say something, but the aura was so oppressive that he could not breathe. Boom. But at this moment, there was a loud boom. Then, the entire Galerain house shook for a while and collapsed. In an instant, many disciples in the Tianma cult were attracted to the scene. They sighed to themselves. Needless to say, it must be their grandmaster who destroyed the house. The Galerain house had been reduced to ruins. Luo Wuqing and the Queen Mother of the West were still confronting each other. Their auras were in full bloom, and their clothes were fluttering in the wind. Many disciples turned to look at him. Is that the Saint Lord of the Jade Lake, the Queen Mother of the West? She is also a great emperor-level powerhouse. But why do I feel that their auras are not right? Could it be that they are competing for the position of Grandmaster? TSK, I'm so envious of our Grandmaster. Not only is he powerful, but he is also being fought over by two great emperor-level beauties. The pinnacle of life. A group of disciples looked at them enviously. They could not help but sigh in their hearts. This was the charm of their grandmaster. A wretched Ning Tian crawled out of a pile of rubble. Why was he always the one getting hurt? Ning Tian looked at the two women and said carefully, "There are too many disciples here. It's not good for us to be here. Why don't we go back to the room and talk?" Shut up. Shut up. The two women shouted at the same time. Ning Tian touched his nose awkwardly. Looking at so many disciples, he could not do this. He could not lose the Grandmaster's dignity. Then, he thought to himself, "System, give me a 3-minute aura suppression card." Chapter 220. Using Aura Suppression Card. Use successful. As the system's voice sounded in his mind, the corners of Ning Tian's mouth lifted slightly, and he walked towards the two women. Just as the two women were confronting each other, a majestic voice suddenly sounded. "Both of you, stop it." Hearing this, the two women's eyes flashed with a hint of astonishment. They looked at Ning Tian one after another. How did this guy suddenly become so bold? Although outsiders thought that Ning Tian was a Nine Tribulations Great Emperor, the two women knew this guy's true strength. "Oomph." Ning Tian snorted, and then he released his aura, directly suppressing the two women's aura. A deep sense of doubt flashed in the two women's beautiful eyes, but they found that their aura had been firmly suppressed by Ning Tian. This guy. Seeing this scene, the group of Tianma cult disciples all widened their eyes. Is the patriarch going to stand up? Ning Tian first walked in front of Luo Wuqing. What are you doing?" Luo Wuqing frowned slightly, and her voice was cold. "Of course, I'm restoring my position as the husband." Ning Tian chuckled, and then very domineeringly, he hugged her soft and delicate body in his arms, then stretched out his big hand and unceremoniously spanked her butt. Smack. Hiss. Soft. Ning Tian coughed dryly, then pretended to be majestic and said, "You deserve to be spanked for throwing my husband away." Luo Wuqing gritted her teeth. "This guy is too much. Forget it. I'll give him face for now. When night comes, I'll use the previous method to suffocate this stinky guy to death." Smack. Smack. Fortunately, Ning Tian let his wife go after hitting her a few times. The real culprit was the Queen Mother of the West. Smack. Seeing the scene in the ruins, the group of Tianma cult disciples widened their eyes. Their admiration for Ning Tian had reached an unimaginable height. Knowing when to stop, Ning Tian decisively maintained a distance from Yi Zichen after delivering the righteous punishment. Then, he looked at the two women seriously and said, "Wife, Queen Mother of the West, you don't have to fight anymore." The two women were taken aback. Their beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of doubt as they looked towards Ning Tian. "I've already come to a conclusion," Ning Tian said with a serious face and a serious tone. "Wife, your butt is softer than the Queen Mother of the West's." Luo Wuqing and the Queen Mother of the West were stunned. Then, there seemed to be a few question marks on his little head. By the time they reacted, a flush had appeared behind the ears of the two women. They looked at each other and secretly nodded. At this moment, the two women chose to temporarily stop fighting and deal with a certain someone first. Ning Tian had a bad premonition in his heart and ran away. Ning Tian. Then, the two girls' shouts could be heard from behind. "Aya, wifey, please be gentler. It hurts." As far as I know, the stability of the teleportation pillar is extremely high. Only a master blacksmith can build it. Otherwise, the teleportation pillar will easily go wrong. "It's fine. There's no need to hire one." Ning Tian chuckled. He looked at the piles of spatial black stones and said, "I can build the teleportation pillar." "Huh? You can even build the teleportation pillar? Are you the omnipotent king?" Hearing the confidence in Ning Tian's words, the Queen Mother of the West couldn't help but be surprised. "Why is this guy so good at everything?" "You've shocked the Queen Mother of the West." Reward: Teleportation Pillar Additional Function. Teleportation Pillar Additional Function. Reduce the consumption of spiritual origin stones by 2/3. The system's voice sounded in his mind. Reduce the consumption? Ning Tian's eyes lit up. Didn't that mean that he could teleport between the Tiamat cult and the Jade Lake sacred ground a few more times? "Wife, let's build the teleportation pillar here, right?" Ning Tian pointed to an empty space in the Tiamat cult square and asked Luo Wuqing. "Yes, let's do it here." Luo Wuqing pondered for a moment and nodded. The teleportation pillar would be more stable if it was built in an empty space. "Wait, you can't do that." Before Ning Tian could do anything, the Grand Elder and a group of elders rushed over anxiously. "Empress, you can't build the teleportation pillar here," the Grand Elder said with a serious face. "Huh?" Luo Wuqing frowned and looked at the Grand Elder in confusion. She asked calmly, "Why?" Chapter 221. The Supreme Elder laughed bitterly when he heard Luo Wuqing's words. Then, he stole a glance at Ning Tian and said tactfully, "It's just that the Ancestral Master is so powerful that I'm afraid this teleportation pillar will affect your cultivation." Luo Wuqing fell silent for a moment before he realized what the Supreme Elder was trying to say. Although the Grand Supreme Elder's words were tactful, he was actually afraid that Ning Tian would destroy the teleportation pillar. "I didn't expect the Supreme Elder to be so concerned about my cultivation." Ning Tian smiled and patted the Supreme Elder's shoulder, giving him a reassuring look. "I'll definitely do as you wish and cultivate harder." "Cultivate? Cultivate harder?" The Supreme Elder's mouth twitched when he heard this. He was so happy that he almost cried. The Supreme Elder's reassuring look was more like a look that said, "You know, I'll destroy it right away." His body trembled, and his lips trembled. He wanted to cry but had no tears. This teleportation pillar wasn't an ordinary building. Just one of it cost tens of billions of spirit coins. Oh no, oh no. The Tianma cult was going to be broke. "Don't worry, Supreme Elder. I'll set up a formation next to the teleportation pillar. There shouldn't be any problems." Luo Wuqing said calmly. "Okay." The Supreme Elder finally felt more confident when he heard this. The group of elders behind him heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Ancestral Master was definitely a great emperor, he shouldn't be able to destroy the great Empress formation by accident, right? The Empress of the West looked at the Supreme Elder and the other elders in confusion. "Why are you all so nervous? Is the power of this fellow's cultivation so terrifying?" The Supreme Elder and the other elders smiled bitterly when they heard this. It was obvious that the Jade Lake had never experienced the ancestral master's power. Jade Lake's sacred leader, the Tianma cult, has a name for the ancestral master's cultivation method. The Supreme Elder smiled bitterly and looked at the Empress of the West. What name? Destructive cultivation. The Supreme Elder said solemnly. What do you mean? Queen Mother of the West was a little suspicious. It can only be understood, but not explained in words. The Supreme Elder shook his head. When the preparations were almost done, Ning Tian first had a group of disciples arrange several spatial boulders neatly in order. Then, he activated his talent skill, uncanny workmanship. Using talent skill, uncanny workmanship, use successful. As the system's voice rang out, Ning Tian's spiritual qi turned into a hammer. There were wind and thunder Dao rhymes within it, and lightning flashed. Get out of the way, I'm going to smash it. Then, Ning Tian shouted loudly, and many of the surrounding disciples moved far away. Smashing? The Queen Mother of the West was stunned. Was the construction of the teleportation pillar so casual? That's right. It's a teleportation pillar. It's very simple. I just need to smash it a few times. Ning Tian grinned. Shi Wangmu fell silent. Was this something a human would say? Next, Ning Tian also showed the Queen Mother of the West what it meant to randomly smash things. Bang! Bang! When Ning Tian's spiritual qi turned into a giant hammer, it landed heavily on the spatial black boulder. Immediately, sparks flashed, and a roar spread throughout the entire Tianma cult. Many disciples rushed over when they heard that the patriarch was going to build the teleportation pillar himself. In the crowd, Lin Hao's eyes widened when he saw this scene. He clicked his tongue and sighed. The patriarch's explosive forging method is really getting better and better. That's right. Perhaps this is the patriarch. The group of elders and disciples in the forging hall sighed. Their gazes towards Ning Tian were filled with deep reverence. Hearing everyone's words, the Queen Mother of the West was stunned for a moment. She looked at Ning Tian strangely. She did not see any Dao rhymes in Ning Tian's hammering technique. In other words, he was really hammering randomly. Did they think that hammering randomly was an explosive forging method? Don't worry. At this moment, Luo Wuqing's calm voice was heard from the side. Her gaze was always on Ning Tian. Since he said that he can do it, he can definitely do it. Her tone was calm, but it was full of certainty. Hearing that, the Queen Mother of the West was stunned for a moment. She nodded thoughtfully and did not say anything else. Bang! Bang! Then, the sound of hammering could be heard continuously. Ning Tian's hammering technique seemed to be random, but in the eyes of the elders and disciples in the forging hall, it was very different. They would not get tired of watching it 100 times. Bang! After hammering thousands of times, an aura suddenly erupted from the center of the square. A pile of spatial black boulders was enveloped by a golden light and turned into a huge stone pillar that soared into the sky. Bang! Boom! The ground of the Sky Demon cult's square quaked as well. Is this the teleportation pillar? It's so tall. It's so big. Seeing the teleportation pillar that soared into the clouds and stood side by side with the sky, the group of Tianma cult disciples' faces flushed red, and their eyes were filled with excitement. I didn't expect him to succeed in forging. Seeing this scene, the Queen Mother of the West's eyes flashed. Phew! Ning Tian breathed a sigh of relief. However, it was not over yet. The teleportation pillar only had one carrier now, and now, what he needed to do was to carve its original ancient text. Superlative skill. Comprehending the method of carving the teleportation pillar's ancient text. Comprehending. At this moment, the system's voice sounded in his mind. A minute later, successfully comprehended the method of carving the teleportation pillar's ancient text. In an instant, there was a movement in Ning Tian's mind. So it's that simple. Ning Tian's lips curled into a smile. Then, he stepped into the air, and the wind and thunder surged in his hands. Heavenly God's power. Activate. Raging thunder. In an instant, the sky shook violently. Then, a bolt of raging thunder fell from the sky and and stopped in Ning Tian's hand. The ancestral master can control thunder and lightning at will? Seeing this scene, the Queen Mother of the West could not help but be stunned for a moment, and a hint of astonishment flashed in her eyes. Controlling thunder and lightning was something that even some great emperors could not do. However, the ancestral master could do it with ease, as if thunder and lightning accompanied him. On the side, Luo Wuqing looked indifferent. She knew that Ning Tian had the physique of a heavenly god. His basic control of the laws of heaven and earth was naturally incomparable to ordinary people. In the sky, the system's voice sounded in his mind. You have shocked the Queen Mother of the West. Reward, Flying Dragon and Dancing Phoenix. Flying Dragon and Dancing Phoenix. The speed of carving the formation is increased by 10 times. Flying Dragon and Dancing Phoenix? Ning Tian was stunned for a moment, and then the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He was worried about how to carve the formation. Then, the bursts of thunder turned into a huge thunder pin and stopped in front of him. Art of Drawing Pin. Activate. Then, as the pin moved, the thunder pin continued to fall on the teleportation pillar that was flickering with golden light, just like a flying dragon and dancing phoenix. Soon, the formation was carved. Boom. In an instant, an aura erupted from the teleportation pillar. Bursts of golden light shone, and the teleportation pillar was completed. Phew. The thunder in Ning Tian's hand dissipated, and he fell from the sky. Chapter 222. On the Tianma Cult Square, the teleportation pillar stood tall and radiated golden light. In this case, the Tianma Cult's teleportation pillar is complete. Ning Tian walked toward the two women and said to the Queen Mother of the West, Now, we can go to the Jade Lake sacred ground to build another teleportation pillar. There was only one teleportation pillar, and it was useless. The teleportation pillar would only be effective after 2 pillars were lit up. Okay. The Queen Mother of the West nodded. Honey, this is a spiritual jade stone. Wait here in the Tianma cult. If I call you through this spiritual jade stone, use the origin crystal on the teleportation pillar. When the time comes, we'll activate the teleportation pillar together. Then, Ning Tian took out a jade stone from his storage ring and placed it in Luo Wuqing's hand. Okay. Luo Wuqing extended her jade-like hand and held the spiritual jade stone in her hand. Then go and come back early. After saying those words, she looked at the Queen Mother of the West cautiously with her beautiful eyes. The two women were full of tension. Seeing this, Ning Tian rubbed his nose and hurriedly said, That's all for now. Queen Mother of the West, let's go. Then, he hurriedly asked the Queen Mother of the West to take him into the void and escape. Judging from the atmosphere just now, if he were to delay any longer, these two women would probably start fighting. It seemed that he had to be strong enough to control the two women. Now that he was a 5-star Saint Emperor, he could barely enter the void opened by a great emperor. Soon, the two of them disappeared. The ancestral master ran so fast. Seeing this, the Grand Elder couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Great Empress, the Jade Lake sacred leader is extremely charming. Aren't you afraid that the ancestral master couldn't resist her temptation? Couldn't resist her temptation? Luo Wuqing's face was cold. She sneered, Ha, if he dares to steal her, I'll cut off his toy. Hiss. Hearing this, everyone felt a chill run down their spine. They couldn't help but worry about the ancestral master. The ancestral master was in danger. Jade Lake's sacred ground. Above the sky, 2 figures appeared in the void. Phew, I'm finally out. Upon reaching the outside world, Ning Tian finally heaved a sigh of relief. Who knew what he had experienced in the void? Haha, the Queen Mother of the West chuckled, licking her red lips seductively with her red tongue. Ancestor, follow me into the jade pool. Yes. Ning Tian nodded, and then both of them started to descend slowly towards the ground. In the Jade Lake sacred ground, Yaoqi Saintis and the Jade Lake disciples were all waiting. Suddenly, 2 figures descended from the sky. It's the sacred master and ancestral master, Patriarch. When the ladies of the Jade Lake saw the 2 of them clearly, their eyes widened. and they looked at Ning Tian excitedly. They had long admired and worshipped the patriarch. Now that they knew that their ancestral master was a nine tribulations great emperor, their admiration for him grew even stronger. Patriarch is indeed very handsome. Ah, Patriarch is so handsome. Ah, I'm dead. I can't even stand properly. The faces of the Jade Lake's disciples flushed, and they were so excited that their legs were trembling. Sacred Master, Patriarch, Yaoqi Saintess walked over and said carefully. She looked at Ning Tian with awe. When she learned that her ancestral master was actually a nine tribulations great emperor, she was shocked for a long time. Miss Yaoqi, you don't have to be so reserved. Just treat me like how you treated me before. Looking at Yaoqi Saintess's cautious look, Ning Tian couldn't help but chuckle. Yaoqi Saintess was a friend. Yes, Patriarch. Hearing this, Yaoqi Saintess breathed a sigh of relief. At the side, the Jade Lake disciples' admiration for Ning Tian reached a peak. Gosh, Patriarch doesn't put on airs at all. He's so friendly. What a gentle patriarch. Each of the female disciples looked at Ning Tian with a smirk in their eyes. Ding! Detected a large amount of faith energy. Absorbing faith energy. Faith energy absorption +2. Faith energy absorption +3. Faith energy absorption +1. Faith energy absorption +2. When the Jade Lake disciples worshipped Ning Tian, the faith energy also began to be absorbed. Current faith energy, 3300100000. Greetings, Patriarch. At this moment, a group of elders from the Jade Lake walked over with smiles on their faces. They looked at Ning Tian with gleaming eyes. At first, they were a little hesitant about building a transmission pillar with the Tianma cult. But now, it seemed that this decision was very wise. After all, the Tianma cult's patriarch was also a nine tribulations great emperor. The Jade Lake had made a big profit. Patriarch, shall we start now? The Queen Mother of the West looked at Ning Tian and asked. Yes, let's start. Ning Tian nodded. Then, the storage ring on his finger flickered, and several spatial black stones fell in front of him. At this time, Ning Tian thought of something and looked at the Queen Mother of the West. Queen Mother of the West, shouldn't the Jade Lake's sacred ground reimburse half of the cost of this transmission pillar? This was money that could be obtained, so it was better to take it. Well, a sly look flashed in the Queen Mother of the West's beautiful eyes. I don't have money, but I do have a person. As she said that, she deliberately straightened her body, showing off her perfect body incisively and vividly. Ning Tian was stunned for a moment and glanced at her subconsciously. TSK, TSK. So big. But although it was big, it couldn't be touched. Forget it. I don't want you to reimburse me. Ning Tian gritted his teeth and looked away with difficulty. Haha. The Queen Mother of the West chuckled triumphantly, and the waves in front of her were turbulent. Phew! Ning Tian breathed a sigh of relief and glared at the Queen Mother of the West. Showing off? Sooner or later, I'll teach you a lesson. Then, he ordered the Jade Lake disciples to place the pieces of spatial black stone together, and then he used the uncanny workmanship and began to smash it in front of the Jade Lake sacred grounds people. Dozens of minutes later, golden light flashed. Jade Lake's women widened their eyes when they saw the huge teleportation pillar. They didn't expect their ancestral master to be a grandmaster blacksmith. When the transmission pillar stood up, Ning Tian didn't hesitate at all and once again carved the ancient runes for it. Phew! The lightning in Ning Tian's hand dissipated, and then he fell from the sky. The group of Jade Lake disciples and elders looked at this scene in a daze. How long had it been? In less than an hour, their ancestral master had finished building such a huge transmission pillar alone? Their ancestral master is so fierce. I like it so much. When they came to their senses, the group of Jade Lake disciples blushed and looked at Ning Tian. Then, Ning Tian took out a spiritual feather stone from his storage ring and said softly, Wife, I've finished building the transmission pillar on my side. Now, let's test it. Soon, Luo Wuqing's cold voice came from the spiritual feather stone. What should I do? Put in the spiritual origin stones, about 300 at a time, Ning Tian said. Chapter 223. Ancestral Master. How did you do it? The Queen Mother's head was full of question marks. I just used an illusory technique. Ning Tian let out a long sigh of relief and said, Illusory technique? The Queen Mother was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but roll her eyes at Ning Tian. How could a holy emperor use an illusory technique to deceive a demon god? Do you think this is a novel? Ridiculous. However, seeing Ning Tian smiling without saying anything, it was obvious that he wouldn't say anything no matter what she asked. No matter how curious the Queen Mother was, she could only give up. However, that demon god seemed to have said that his race's item was left in the Tianling realm. At this moment, the Queen Mother frowned slightly. Yes. Ning Tian nodded, and a glint flashed in his eyes. But if it was really left in the Tianling realm, shouldn't it have caused a commotion long ago? After all, it's an item from the demon god race. It can't be an ordinary item, right? Hearing that, the Queen Mother was silent for a moment and nodded. You have a point. The two fell into silence. After what happened just now, the two of them were still in a daze. If it weren't for Ning Tian's good acting and the timely help of the system, they would have been finished. The two of them looked at each other and smiled, feeling lucky to have survived a disaster. Facing a demon god was indeed a matter of life and death. Ha! The Queen Mother suddenly raised her head and licked her bright red lips. Her eyes were shining as she looked at Ning Tian and said, Ancestral Master, why don't we continue? Ning Tian was stunned. Before he could react, a face came close to him. His lips touched a touch of warmth and softness. He immediately widened his eyes. This woman was addicted to kissing? Damn, I was kissed by force again. This was the cycle of reincarnation. Who would be spared by the heavens? A few minutes later, the Queen Mother's face was slightly red, and she let go of Ning Tian with a smug look. Ning Tian wiped his mouth and said seriously, I want to report you for molestation. Save it. The Queen Mother of the West rolled her eyes at Ning Tian in a flirtatious manner. Ancestral Master, you're a classic example of taking advantage of others and still acting innocent. Then, the two of them looked at the broken space tunnel and exchanged a helpless glance. Due to the appearance of the demonic god, much of the space tunnel had been destroyed. If I had known, I would have scared that fiend celestial into helping me build a spatial tunnel. Ning Tian shook his head and sighed. Wasn't this giving him a hard job for free? Ancestor, do you want me to erase these void whirlpools? Shi Wangmu asked with a smile. No, there's no need. Ning Tian shook his head and looked at the void portals. A glint flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he had a bold idea. These void vortexes contained powerful void energy. If he could comprehend these void energy, would he be able to control some void energy? His idea could be said to be extremely bold. If others knew about it, they would probably be shocked. After all, only god emperors could come into contact with the void energy, and only great emperors could master a little. However, Ning Tian was only a saint emperor, and he had such a bold idea. He did as he said. Ning Tian's heart stirred as he walked toward a few of the void vortexes. First, he used the uncanny craftsmanship to cultivate them. As the big hammer smashed on the void vortexes, a burst of aura instantly erupted. Those void vortexes were all destroyed by the hammer. The holes were filled. However, Ning Tian only left one hole. The big hammer in his hand dissipated as he walked over. Ancestral Master, what are you doing? The Queen Mother of the West frowned slightly and reminded with a worried tone. These are void vortexes. Once you're sucked into them, you'll be lost. It's okay. I have confidence. Ning Tian's lips curled into a confident arc as he smiled at the Queen Mother of the West. Then, he stretched out his hand to touch those void vortexes. Boom. In an instant, that terrifying suction force instantly erupted from the void vortexes, as if it wanted to pull Ning Tian into the endless void. Seeing this scene, the Queen Mother of the West's expression changed slightly, and she was about to rush over. I'm fine. At this moment, Ning Tian shook his head at the Queen Mother of the West. Boom. Then, a wisp of wind and thunder surged on his body. Ning Tian casually shook his shoulder and directly shattered the void vortexes that wrapped around his body. Wind and thunder Taoist rhyme? The Queen Mother of the West was stunned for a moment, and the worry in her eyes slowly dissipated. Ning Tian stretched out his hand and touched the void vortexes lightly. At this moment, the heavenly god constitution came into effect, and a burst of light appeared in his body. At this moment, the system's voice rang in his mind. Detected that the host has absorbed the Tao of void comprehension. Comprehending. 5 minutes later. Comprehension successful. Currently, the host's comprehension of the Tao of void has reached beginner level. It's done? Hearing the system's voice, Ning Tian was stunned for a moment, and a hint of astonishment flashed in his eyes. He was just casually giving it a try, and he did not expect it to succeed. Then let me try and see what this beginner level of the Tao of void can do, Ning Tian muttered in his heart. Then, with a thought, Tao of void activate. Whoosh. F***. Leaving behind a gasp of surprise, Ning Tian disappeared. The Queen Mother of the West was stunned for a moment. She had only heard one sentence, and a big black rat flashed past. Where's the founder? Then, without hesitation, she hurriedly left the space tunnel of the teleportation pillar. Outside, Jade Lake's sacred ground, Yaoqi Saintis and a group of disciples and elders were waiting silently. Whoosh! At this moment, the void vortexes opened. A black shadow flashed past. Huh? What just flashed past? The group of disciples and elders was dumbfounded. Look, in the sky. It's the founder. At this moment, a voice rang out. The disciples and elders looked up and saw Ning Tian's figure appearing in the sky. Ning Tian shook his dizzy head and smiled at the group of disciples. Hello. F***ck. Before he could finish his sentence, his body entered the void vortexes again. He forcefully shifted his position again. This was the power of the Tao of void. He could not fully control it, so he would appear in the void vortexes and enter the void vortexes. At this moment, Ning Tian was like a deflated balloon, flying around and bumping into things in the Jade Lake sacred ground. Boom, bam, boom. After an unknown period of time, his speed finally slowed down. On the Jade Lake sacred ground, a huge cloud of dust appeared. Everywhere was a mess. The founder has stopped. Seeing this, Yaoqi Saintis and a group of disciples heaved a sigh of relief. In the sky, the Queen Mother of the West came out of the bronze gate. Looking at the mess in the Jade Lake sacred ground, the corner of her mouth could not help but twitch. The founder had stopped, but some of the buildings in the Jade Lake sacred ground were destroyed. At this moment, she finally understood what the Grand Elder of the Tianma cult meant by destructive cultivation. Chapter 224. There's movement. Elder Gu Yan's pupils constricted. Swish. Then, the group of elders and disciples all looked at the teleportation pillar. Luo Wuqing's eyes also moved toward it. They saw that the teleportation pillar was shining. A figure emerged from the teleportation pillar. That was their founder. The group of disciples was excited. It seemed that the teleportation pillar was successfully built. Wait a minute. Why didn't the founder wear pants? Suddenly, the group of disciples looked at Ning Tian with a strange expression. Haha, I can finally compete with the founder. Elder Gu Yin was secretly happy. He didn't succeed the last time, but this time, he could finally compete. After taking a look, Elder Guyan sighed, feeling ashamed of his inferiority. We can't compete, we can't compete. The crowd of disciples exclaimed in astonishment. As expected of their founder, he was fierce everywhere. Huh, damn. Ning Tian scratched his head and suddenly realized that his pants were gone. Cough. He coughed and quickly used his spirit energy to cover himself. At this time, a cold gaze suddenly shot toward Ning Tian. He suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Cough, cough. Wife, this is just a misunderstanding. Ning Tian coughed. Misunderstanding? Luo Wuqing sneered. A beautiful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, but it was incomparably cold. Yes, it's really a misunderstanding. Wait a minute. You. What do you mean by that pair of scissors? Ning Tian's pupils suddenly constricted. What do you think? Luo Wuqing sneered. I'm really innocent. If you don't believe me, I can drag you to. Before Ning Tian could finish his words, Luo Wuqing, who had stepped forward, covered his mouth. Luo Wuqing's earlobes were slightly red. This guy actually wanted to talk about that in front of so many people. All right, I'll believe you for now. Then, can we disperse the spirit scissors? This thing is sharp, mainly because I don't want to hurt your face. Ning Tian said cautiously. Oh? Really? Luo Wuqing coldly glanced at Ning Tian's lower body. Suddenly, a cold wind blew. Then I'll let you off for now. As she spoke, she waved her jade-like hand, and the scissors formed from spiritual energy slowly dissipated. Phew! Ning Tian heaved a sigh of relief. He had almost tearfully bid farewell to his happiness. How's the teleportation pillar? Luo Wuqing glanced at the teleportation pillar as the golden light slowly dissipated. He then looked at Ning Tian and asked, It's already perfect. Ning Tian looked at the teleportation pillar. Also, the consumption of raw crystals has decreased from 900 to 300. Oh? Luo Wuqing raised her eyebrows and nodded. If that's the case, we can save a lot of raw crystals. However, there's one more thing. Suddenly, Ning Tian's tone became a little serious. He frowned slightly and looked at Luo Wuqing with a solemn expression. What's the matter? Seeing Ning Tian's serious expression, Luo Wuqing couldn't help but be startled. Let's go back to the room and talk. After speaking, Ning Tian no longer hesitated. Under Luo Wuqing's astonished gaze, he carried her on his shoulder and then used the path of void. He leaped dozens of meters and headed toward the back mountain of the Tianma cult. Seeing this scene, the disciples and elders all widened their eyes. It turned out that the patriarch was so thirsty. On the other side, Lin Hao picked up a small notebook. Lin Hao, quickly record. How long did the patriarch take this time? I can't remember, senior brother. The patriarch flashed back and forth this time. I can't see. The back mountain of the Tianma cult. In the room, Ning Tian put down Luo Wuqing on his shoulder. You've grasped the path of void? Luo Wuqing glanced at him and asked. I'm not that powerful. I've only grasped a little bit of it. I haven't completely grasped it yet, Ning Tian said very humbly. Hearing this, Luo Wuqing rolled her eyes. Listen, is this even human? With the strength of a holy emperor, he had already grasped the path of void. How could those god thearchs survive? Before we get down to business, I want to know how many Daos you've grasped now? Luo Wuqing's beautiful eyes flashed as she looked at Ning Tian. Not many. Roughly, Sword Dao, Music Dao, Fist Dao, Palm Dao, Wind Dao, Pill Dao, Path of Void, 7 Das. Ning Tian scratched his head and said, 7 Das. Luo Wuqing was stunned for a moment. She shook her head and sighed. As expected, you're a pervert. No, I'm not a pervert. What do you mean? This is a pervert, Ning Tian said and suddenly hugged her slender waist. Luo Wuqing blushed and quickly pushed this guy away. Don't you want to get down to business? Yes, Ning Tian said with a smile. I'm just proving that this is a pervert. You? Luo Wuqing blushed and instantly looked cute. Looking at his wife who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, Ning Tian revealed a smile. In front of outsiders, Luo Wuqing was always the high and mighty, extremely cold empress of the Tianma cult. But in front of him, she was like a little girl. This feeling was great, haha. Okay, it's time for me to get down to business. Ning Tian withdrew his cheap smile and gradually became serious. When Queen Mother of the West and I were checking the stability of the transmission pillar's space tunnel, we encountered something. What happened? We encountered a demon god, Ning Tian said solemnly. Demon? Demon god? Luo Wuqing's face suddenly changed. She looked at Ning Tian with some panic. He didn't attack you, right? Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? Looking at the panicked Luo Wuqing, Ning Tian couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. This silly wife. If the devil god had really attacked them, how could he still be standing here unscathed? However, being too concerned makes one confused. Luo Wuqing was too worried, but it was understandable. Don't worry, that demon god was frightened by my aura and didn't dare to attack us. That guy thought I was a powerful human. That demon god was terrified. Ning Tian smiled in a relaxed tone. PFFF. After hearing that Ning Tian was fine and hearing this sentence, Luo Wuqing's worry was finally completely relieved, and she revealed a smile. That smile was like 100 flowers blooming, so beautiful that it was soul-stirring. For a moment, Ning Tian couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He couldn't be blamed for this. It was really too beautiful. PFFF, fool, what are you looking at? Luo Wuqing stretched out her hand and waved it in front of Ning Tian's eyes. Ahem. Ning Tian came back to his senses and coughed dryly. If that demon god knew that he was scared away by you, a mere saint emperor, I'm afraid he would vomit blood in anger, right? Luo Wuqing couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 225. So angry that he vomited blood? Ning Tian scratched his head. That's fine. I do this often. I'm familiar with it. Luo Wuqing, however, that demon god said that something belonging to another race fell in the celestial spirit region. Although he was tricked by me, I'm still a little worried that he'll come back. After all, he's a demon god. Ning Tian frowned slightly and said slowly, Don't worry. It's not that simple. Luo Wuqing wasn't so worried. Her red lips parted slightly. Although he's a demon god, it's a little difficult for him to enter the celestial spirit region. Although the celestial spirit region is small, it's the only one among the 9 regions that's full of humans. If a demon god wants to enter the celestial spirit region, those human powerhouses won't let him in so easily. Hearing this, Ning Tian was silent for a moment. Human powerhouses? Are there human powerhouses in the celestial spirit region? He looked at Luo Wuqing in confusion and asked. Not really. Luo Wuqing shook her head slightly. Human powerhouses aren't in the 9 regions. Those demon gods and monster gods aren't in the 9 regions either. Then where are they? The celestial realm, Luo Wuqing said calmly. The celestial realm. Ning Tian frowned and looked at Luo Wuqing. Wife, do you know anything about the celestial realm? I don't know much about the celestial realm. I only know that it's vast and boundless. I don't know anything else. Luo Wuqing shook her head. All right. Ning Tian rubbed his head helplessly and put the celestial realm's matter aside. After all, the celestial realm was still a long way away from him. He usually kept things that were too far away in his heart. He wasn't good at worrying over nothing. However, we can pay attention to the thing that the demon god said. Ning Tian said, Okay. Luo Wuqing nodded and said softly, I'll send the elders in the sect to pay attention to this matter. Yes. Honey, now that we're done here, shouldn't we talk about something else? As he spoke, Ning Tian approached Luo Wuqing. I won't. Luo Wuqing shook his head resolutely and looked at Ning Tian indifferently. Can you be a decent person like me? Don't always think about some dirty things in your head. Oh, okay. Since you understand, then what are you doing? Luo Wuqing's pretty face darkened, and several black lines appeared on her forehead. Well, Ning Tian said seriously, I'm giving you a massage. Also, honey, there's something you have to understand. What logic? Luo Wuqing stared blankly for a moment. He didn't notice that this guy's hand was reaching for a yard after taking an inch. Only decent people are into colors. Those who don't are not decent. You are shameless. Haha, Ning Tian laughed, then turned into a vicious wolf and pounced on Luo Wuqing. Start. Hee. Details. In the past few days, the news of the alliance between the Tiamat cult and the Jade Lake Sacred Ground and the establishment of the transmission pillar had spread throughout the celestial spirit realm. Many of the leaders of the factions were astounded. This undoubtedly promoted the division of forces in the entire celestial spirit realm. One had to know that the Jade Lake's sacred ground already had a 9 tribulation great emperor, and there was also the empress of the Tianma cult and a legendary patriarch. Wouldn't that make 3 9 tribulation great emperors? This kind of strength was enough to crush the entire celestial spirit realm. Many shrewd forces already had plans to join them. In the Righteous Alliance, in the secret chamber, Emperor Zhengtian was frowning and fidgeting. He was now saying that he was panicking. The original plan of joining forces with the Void God Celestial Palace to destroy the Tianma cult in half a year had been carefully planned. What a perfect plan! But who would have thought that only half a year had passed, and the Tianma cult's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, not to mention the emergence of a 9 tribulation great emperor. Now, they had even announced an alliance with the Jade Lake Sacred Ground. Damn it, wouldn't his plan be completely messed up? And all of this was because of the legendary patriarch that everyone thought was insignificant. It was precisely because of his appearance that everything was messed up. Don't worry. At this time, the Void God Great Emperor's projection slowly appeared. He looked calm. You're not worried, but the eunuch is... Me? Heavenly Emperor Zhengtian was confused. You're the eunuch. Your whole family are eunuchs. However, this was just a thought in his heart. Don't panic. The Void God Great Emperor chuckled. How is Shinsu? He's recovered a little. That's good. When he recovers, we have a way to deal with the Jade Lake, the Void God Great Emperor said lightly. When will you come out of seclusion? Emperor Zhengtian frowned and asked. In his heart, he felt that the longer this dragged on, the more wrong it felt. Soon. Don't worry. When I come out of seclusion, 2 9th-stage Great Emperors won't be able to do anything to me. The Void God Great Emperor smiled confidently. Hearing this, Emperor Zhengtian frowned slightly and said, Anyway, hurry up. That legendary patriarch always gives me a bad premonition. At this time, in the Tianma cult, under the Moonlight Cliff, the disciples of the Tianma cult and the Jade Lake Sacred Ground were sitting in 2 different places. Their gazes fell on the patriarch who was on the Moonlight Cliff. Have you guys learned the martial arts I taught you just now? Ning Tian took a bite of the apple, then looked at the disciples of the 2 sects and asked, Yes. With the patriarch's teachings, even a fool can learn it. The disciples of the Tianma cult and the Jade Lake all sighed. The female disciples of the Jade Lake all blushed, and they were extremely excited. After coming to the Tianma cult, it had completely overturned their imaginations. For example, as long as they shouted that the patriarch was awesome and was a god forever, their cultivation speed would be doubled. Or any martial arts that they didn't understand, after consulting the patriarch, they would be able to learn it in minutes. This was too magical. It's good that you've learned it. Ning Tian nodded and stood up slightly. At this time, the first elder flew over from the side. What's wrong? First elder? Ning Tian asked. I'm here to deliver a message to the patriarch. The first elder sighed helplessly, and a booklet appeared in his hand. The sect leader of the Ink Feather sect is willing to spend 1 billion spirit coins to ask the patriarch to refine an elixir. The Qingyi sect wants to form an alliance with the Tianma cult. The Scarlet Cloud Mansion. Next, the first elder said that some forces wanted to ask him to refine an elixir, or they wanted to form an alliance with the Tianma cult. Hearing this, Ning Tian felt a headache coming on. The disciples of the Tianma cult below raised their heads proudly and looked at Ning Tian excitedly. Because of the patriarch, the Tianma cult had become more and more powerful. Where's my wife? Ning Tian rubbed his head and asked. The empress said that all these matters will be left to the patriarch to decide, the first elder said carefully. I see. Ning Tian frowned slightly. Then reject all of them. Reject all of them? The first elder was stunned. Yes. Ning Tian nodded and sneered. These guys just want to join the Tianma cult after seeing how powerful it has become. If they encounter an even more powerful force, I'm afraid they'll go over again. They're just fence-sitters. What's the use of having them? Hearing this, the first elder was stunned and felt that it made sense. Then I'll go and chase them away. The first elder turned and was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Ning Tian and said, By the way, Patriarch, the Empress wants you to go to the demonic palace. Hearing this, Ning Tian more or less understood Luo Wuqing's intention. He looked at Luo Wuqing and said, "So, my wife, you want me to pacify the people?" Luo Wuqing nodded slightly, agreeing with his words. Hee. Ning Tian smiled and hooked his arm around Luo Wuqing's shoulder. "I didn't expect my wife to trust me so much." "No, I don't trust you." Luo Wuqing shook her head and said seriously, "I discussed it with a group of elders. After all, your ability to bluff people is unparalleled." Yes, yes. In the heavenly demon palace, a group of elders nodded secretly. After all, with the ancestral master's mouth, he could turn black into white. Hearing this, Ning Tian's face darkened. He pretended to be distressed and looked at Luo Wuqing. "Wife, I didn't expect you to see me as such a person." Seeing Ning Tian's disappointed expression, Luo Wuqing's heart thumped and she panicked. Could it be that her words had hurt Ning Tian? Just as she was about to say something, Ning Tian interrupted her. "Don't say any more. Without a wife's gentle kiss, I won't be able to recover." Ning Tian's shameless voice sounded. The panic in Luo Wuqing's heart disappeared. This guy was actually teasing her. She really thought that she had hurt this guy. A few black lines appeared on her forehead. She gritted her teeth and slammed her palm on Ning Tian's body. Scram. Bang. In the next moment, Ning Tian flew out of the demonic palace. The group of elders widened their eyes and looked over. The ancestral master's posture is so cool. I'll give him 99 points. Any more points and the ancestral master will be proud. The group of elders discussed animatedly. What? Elders, do you want to experience it too? Luo Wuqing narrowed her eyes, a cold glint flashing in her eyes. We wouldn't dare." Hearing this, the group of elders immediately became as obedient as little lambs. A shooting star flashed across the Tianma cult. "Look, it's the ancestral master." The group of Tianma cult disciples widened their eyes and looked up excitedly at the shooting star. "I didn't expect the ancestral master to be so cool when he's flying. He's so cool and can fly." The Jade Lake female disciples were full of admiration. After a while, Ning Tian ran back. He was clean as if nothing had happened. Seeing this scene, the group of elders in the demonic palace was full of admiration. As expected of the ancestral master, he was unscathed even after being sent flying by the Empress. Ning Tian sat back down beside Luo Wuqing and whispered in her ear, "Wife, Linba is also a god the arch. Do you want to go with me?" "No." Luo Wuqing shook her head. "He's just a one-star boundary emperor. I'll let the Grand Elder go with you." The Grand Elder? Thinking of that old man, Ning Tian remembered that the Grand Elder was not in the palace. "Where is the Grand Elder?" Ning Tian asked. Luo Wuqing said, "He's breaking through to the god the Archrealm again. This time, he specifically told me not to make any big movements." Why doesn't the Grand Elder want me to cultivate when he's breaking through to the god the Archrealm? Ning Tian was puzzled. The last time you condensed a spirit vein, you sucked out all the spirit energy in the Tianma cult. This caused the Grand Elder to fail before he even started to break through to the god the Archrealm. Do you think he won't take precautions against you this time? Luo Wuqing glared at Ning Tian. Is there such a thing? Ning Tian scratched his head. How could he not remember? Yes, there is. The group of elders nodded their heads in agreement. Hearing this, Ning Tian couldn't help but mutter in his heart. He didn't expect him to be so capable. Boom. At this moment, the entire Tianma cult shook violently. Then, a terrifying aura began to condense. All the elders were taken aback for a moment before a glint flashed across their eyes. Is the Grand Elder trying to break through to the god the Archrealm? Chapter 227. Inside the celestial demon palace, the group of elders was extremely excited when they sensed the terrifying aura. Was their Tianma cult finally going to have another divine emperor? Let's go out and take a look, Luo Wuqing said indifferently. Then, everyone moved and flew out of the celestial demon palace. Boom. When the aura swept through the entire Tianma cult, many disciples' expressions changed, and they all looked in the direction of the eruption of aura. That direction was the mountain behind the sword hall. Is there an elder in the cult breaking through? It actually caused such a big commotion. The group of disciples was somewhat expectant. In the sky, dozens of auras appeared. The disciples all looked up, their eyes full of reverence. It's the patriarch and the empress. Boom. The aura erupted from the mountain behind the sword hall. Then, a huge suction force erupted, and all the spiritual energy in the Tianma cult flowed toward the mountain behind the sword hall. TSK. It actually used so much spiritual energy. Ning Tian looked at the mountain behind the sword hall and couldn't help but sigh. Of course. After all, it's breaking through to the divine emperor realm. Luo Wuqing said, then rolled his eyes at someone. But this is not as big as the last time you were in the scripture depository. Last time, you sucked out all the spiritual energy in the Tianma cult in one go. Haha. Ning Tian scratched his head and laughed awkwardly. After all, he had activated the heavenly god body last time, so the amount of spiritual energy he needed was naturally enormous. Boom. At this time, all the spiritual energy in the Tianma cult turned into spiritual energy dragons. After circling in the sky for a while, they rushed toward the mountain behind the sword hall. Then, an aura that was above the heavenly venerable realm and below the divine emperor realm erupted. All the disciples' faces were pale, and they couldn't withstand it. Fortunately, Luo Wuqing gently waved his hand in the sky, and the great emperor's aura enveloped all the disciples, so they couldn't feel the strong pressure. Supreme Elder, something's not right. Ning Tian frowned slightly. Although he was not in the divine emperor realm, he had dealt with great emperors before. Although the Supreme Elder's aura was above the heavenly venerable realm, he was not in the divine emperor realm. There's no spiritual energy. Maybe he's going to fail. Luo Wuqing frowned at the side. There's no spiritual energy? Ning Tian raised her eyebrows and smiled. That's easy. Then, his whole body trembled. Then, a huge amount of spiritual energy rushed out from his body. Boom. This movement, the movement to the disciples and elders to the god. Divine Emperor Realm C was. Of God Realm, S Sex Eyes to the Divine Emperor Realm, to Realm God, S Ocean Sex Ocean C. Of Sex Divine Saws Divine, S Sect, S Sex Emperors is to? Look, S is to C. S to the Wu One. SS? S Ning Tian's voice came from the sky. Wife, is this little bit of spiritual energy enough for the Supreme Elder to break through? If it's not enough, I have more. More. Hearing the patriarch's words, the group of disciples was stunned. Ancestor, why do you have so much spiritual energy? Elder Gu Yin couldn't help but ask. Even if the Wu One was a great emperor, this amount of spiritual energy was still a lot. Is it? Ning Tian scratched his head. I think it's too little. It's only 3 times the size of the Tianma cult's Ocean Sea. 3 times the size of the Tianma cult's Ocean Sea? That's still too little? The group of disciples widened their eyes and sucked in a breath of cold air one after another. It turned out that one spirit ocean wasn't all of the Wu One's Ocean Sea. He had 3F * King spirit oceans? Was he still human? You've shocked the disciples of the Tianma cult. You've shocked the disciples of the Jade Lake. Reward, Divine Emperor Realm Comprehension. Divine Emperor Realm Comprehension. After absorbing it, breaking through to the Divine Emperor Realm will be easier. Ning Tian was stunned for a moment. Divine Emperor Realm Comprehension, this reward seemed to be of little value. With so much spiritual energy, it's enough for the Supreme Elder to break through. At this time, Luo Wuqing said faintly, Okay. Ning Tian nodded. Since the Supreme Elder failed last time, I'll help him this time. Anyway, the Supreme Elder's breakthrough was a good thing for the Tianma cult. Boom. Then, sensing the huge amount of spiritual energy, The suction force at the back mountain of the sword hall, which had stopped, suddenly erupted again. Half an hour later. Boom. Ha ha ha. The back mountain exploded, and a loud laughter sounded. A white-haired old man soared into the sky, and waves of terrifying aura erupted from his body. That was the aura of a one-star boundary emperor. The Supreme Elder has successfully broken through. Our Tianma cult has a third divine emperor realm expert. The group of elders was extremely excited, and tears flowed from their eyes. Since the Empress took over the Tianma cult, she had been relying on herself to shoulder the entire Tianma cult. Now, in addition to the Ancestral Master, the Supreme Elder had also stepped into the Divine Emperor realm. Congratulations, Supreme Elder. Congratulations, Supreme Elder. A group of disciples and elders congratulated him excitedly. Congratulations, Supreme Elder. Ning Tian and Luo Wuqing walked over and said to him with a smile, Greetings, Ancestral Master, Empress. The Supreme Elder bowed slightly. When he found that he still couldn't see the Ancestral Master's strength after stepping into the Divine Emperor realm, he was even more respectful and more convinced. The Ancestral Master was definitely a Nine Tribulations great emperor. Without the Ancestral Master's help, I'm afraid this old man will fail again. The Supreme Elder sighed and looked gratefully at Ning Tian. This old man has nothing to thank you for. Why don't I give the Imperial Maiden painting to the Ancestral Master? As soon as he said this, Luo Wuqing's pretty face turned cold. Ahem. Ning Tian coughed dryly and waved his hand. Supreme Elder, how can I be that kind of person? However, I have a friend. A friend? The Supreme Elder was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. Oh, this old man understands. Oh, a friend? Luo Wuqing sneered and looked coldly at Ning Tian. How come I don't know that you have a friend? As she spoke, she pinched Ning Tian's waist. Ouch, wife, be gentle for our happiness. Ning Tian pretended to be in pain. Shut up. Luo Wuqing rolled her eyes at him. This guy was like a piece of dead meat. Pinching him didn't hurt at all. All right, you guys get ready to leave for Dongxing, Luo Wuqing said lightly. By the way, if you want to bring disciples, bring your heavenly demon horde. She glanced at Ning Tian again. Well, okay. The heavenly demon horde was the disciple assigned to him last time. Ning Tian nodded, but he had another idea in his mind. There was a large population in Dongxing. If he could turn all of them into his believers, wouldn't the faith energy increase faster? Chapter 228. Supreme Elder, let's get ready and head to Dongxing country. With this idea in mind, Ning Tian planned to carry it out. Okay. The Supreme Elder nodded and went to prepare. The disciples of the heavenly demon horde were all excited when they heard that their patriarch was going to take them to battle. At this moment, Dongxing country, Monarch City, in the Imperial Palace, Lin Ba's face was ugly as he sat on the dragon throne. Heavenly Elder Physician was standing beside him, checking his pulse. After a long time, Heavenly Elder sighed and got up slowly. How is it, Heavenly Elder? Lin Ba frowned as he asked. Your Majesty, you're not seriously ill. You're just overworked. Heavenly Elder shook his head. Ever since the death of the third prince, you've been thinking about how to deal with the Tianma cult. The people in Dongxing country have no way to make a living. They're very resentful of you. Heavenly Elder sighed again. So what if they're resentful? Lin Ba snorted, his eyes filled with killing intent. If they're dissatisfied, I'll just send someone to kill them. How can those lowly people be more important than my plan? That legendary patriarch is really a cunning old fox. As a Nine Tribulations great emperor, he pretended to be weak and caused my son's tragic death. I have to take revenge for this, Heavenly Elder said quietly. But how? Lin Ba was stunned for a moment and fell silent. Yes. How? Now that the Tianma cult had two Nine Tribulations great emperors, they could crush him in minutes. Forget it. Lin Ba sighed. I think it's time for me to retire and pass the throne to Lin Song. Lin Song was the first prince of Dongxing country. However, his talent was not as high as Lin Xiaoyao's, so even though he was the first prince, his treatment was not as good as Lin Xiaoyao's. Now that Lin Xiaoyao was dead, Lin Song was the only one who could inherit the throne. "What about you, your majesty?" Heavenly Elder asked. "Me." A glint flashed across Lin Ba's eyes as his lips curled into a sinister smile. "Of course I'm going to the Righteous Tao Alliance. We can only rely on them now." He had thought it through. If he wanted to take revenge, relying on his own strength was definitely not enough. Therefore, they could only rely on the Righteous Tao Alliance. "Heavenly Elder, go and call Lin Song over." Lin Ba instructed Heavenly Elder.
Yes.
Sky Elder nodded and turned to leave. After a while, he reappeared in the hall with a young man following behind him. "Your Majesty, I've brought the first prince." "Yes," Lin Ba replied. He then looked at Lin Song and said indifferently, "Lin Song, do you know why I called you here?" "Song is slow-witted. If there is something I don't know, please tell me, father." Lin Song shook his head. "I want to pass the throne to you. In the future, you will be the king of Dongxing country." Lin Ba looked at him indifferently and said, "Me?" Lin Song panicked when he heard that. "Father, if you abdicate, how can I control Dongxing kingdom?" "Father, please reconsider." Hearing this, Lin Ba frowned. He was extremely unhappy. This was the reason why he did not like Lin Song. He was too cowardly. He did not even dare to inherit the throne. If it was Lin Xiaoyao, he would have been ecstatic. How could his son be so cowardly? "You will do whatever I tell you to do. Do you understand?" Lin Ba snorted. A terrifying aura instantly enveloped Lin Song, causing him to be unable to move. "I understand. Father, please, appease your anger." Lin Song was suppressed to the point that he could not move. He could only struggle to speak. "Humph. I will pass the throne to you at noon today." Lin Ba snorted coldly. Yes. At this moment, no matter how unwilling Lin Song was, he could not refuse. At noon, when the news of the king passing the throne to the first prince spread from the royal family, the entire monarch city was in an uproar. No way. The king was going to abdicate? However, the king was in his middle age. It was not his turn to abdicate. All the citizens were at a loss. Their eyes were filled with confusion. However, they all walked towards the monarch city square. They had to witness such a big event with their own eyes. The monarch city square. The square was already filled with people. Many cultivators and citizens mingled together, looking at the high platform. On the high platform, Lin Song had changed into a dragon robe. However, the fear in his eyes was still visible to the crowd. "Sigh, Prince Lin Song is too cowardly. He is not suitable to inherit the throne." "That's right. Prince Xiaoyao is better. He is talented and has a more suitable personality. It's a pity that he died in the hands of the legendary patriarch." "What a pity." Everyone present let out a sigh. Their words were filled with panic about Lin Song inheriting the throne. A king should be able to lead the kingdom to prosperity, not to decline. Boom. At this moment, an aura came from the sky. Everyone knelt on the ground. In the blink of an eye, Lin Ba appeared on the high platform. "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Greetings, Your Majesty." The group of commoners and subjects all bowed to him with deep reverence. From the beginning to the end, Lin Ba had never looked at them. In his eyes, this so-called succession ceremony was just a formality. He walked in front of Lin Song and handed the crown that symbolized the throne to Lin Song. He said calmly, "From today onwards, you are the king of Dongxing Kingdom." "All right, that's it." As soon as he finished speaking, the citizens were dumbfounded. "That's it? That's it? Your Majesty, aren't you being too hasty?" Even Elder Tian, who was standing at the side, could not stand it anymore. "This succession ceremony is over just like that?" He just walked over, said a few words, and then it's over? "What else can I do?" Lin Ba said calmly. He had no intention of holding a succession ceremony in the first place. After saying that, he leaped into the air and left. Looking at the group of commoners and cultivators, All of them were looking at each other with dumbfounded expressions. Is this considered a succession ceremony? Lin Song gritted his teeth. Although he knew that his father did not like him, this was not giving him face. He was probably the most hasty king in the history of Dongxing Kingdom. Sigh. The citizens sighed. They were all ready to leave. Suddenly, a black shadow fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. Huh. Everyone abruptly turned their heads and looked in that direction. The black shadow landed, and a huge pit appeared on the ground. It was filled with dust. When the dust settled, the crowd could finally see clearly. Hiss! That's the king. At this moment, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The voice that fell from the sky belonged to Lin Ba, who had just left. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.